Good morning, everybody. I am Cressida Chindi. I work for Treetop Plus here in Kampala.
I'm Dccap, Senior Management Officer in this district in for the
Thank you all for the self-introduction. Now we know who is here. We have representatives from the district local governments. We have 5 district local governments here. That is Busheni, Lodisi, Bitoma, Chisoro, and Kasese. But we also have civil society representatives. And more will be joining us. We also have the representatives of the department, and the commissioner stepped out, but he will introduce when he's making his presentation. On behalf of NED, I want to thank you for honoring the invitation, for considering this engagement as a crucial action in helping the districts to advance your work related to climate change. Like I said, this activity is organized in collaboration with the department, the Climate Change and Carbon Trade Department, which was formerly referred to as the Climate Change Department, in the Ministry of Water and Environment. But we are also financially supported by the Worldwide Fund for Nature and the Triple Benefits Program. The objective of this activity or the program is to ensure that the different actors, all the planning and budgeting frameworks, are responsive to climate change actions. And the only way this can be responsive is when they are integrated or mainstreamed into such planning frameworks. Of course, we know that the districts have the district development plans, and also they have budgets. That is why you are key stakeholders in ensuring that climate action is integrated in planning frameworks. And that is why we selected the district local governments, because you mainstream, but you also implement climate actions. And I remember from the previous engagements we've had around mainstreaming climate change, I think we started with the background, the mainstreaming processes, the NDCs, the climate change policy, raising awareness around those action plans and policy frameworks. But there was a recommendation that I remember was made then, that yes, we are taught how to mainstream, but we do not have, and also the Act mandates that the districts develop district climate action plans, but then we do not have the guidelines. But today, we are glad that the Ministry of Water and Environment, they have developed a draft document, that is the draft guidelines for district climate change action plans, that now we believe will guide the districts in mainstreaming climate change actions in their plans, but also support them to develop the district climate change action plans. Because as much as I know, not so many districts have developed these plans. I believe that at the end of the day, if this information is shared, if now you get to know about the processes, the steps, it will be easy for you to go back and translate this into the actual formulation and give guidance to the districts on how to develop the plans moving forward to guide in the mainstream into the relevant development plans at that level. So with that, I want to once again welcome you And we shall proceed with our next agenda item, which is background of climate action mainstreaming and planning frameworks. And this will be made by a representative from the department. So I want to welcome my commissioner, Mr. Selmako Mohammed, to give us that presentation.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Selmako Mohammed. I work in the Ministry of Water and Environment, Department newly named Climate Change and Trade. I think most of you know why it's like that. We have undergone restructuring, national level. So many things have changed. So if you have reflection, the structuring, it's a local government. Soon coming. So as the presentation is coming, many things have changed in the Ministry of Water and Environment. This is the ministry where the rackets happened at the same time of restructuring. So the former NFA is now merged with the Department for Forestry. I have somebody who's the forester. And forestry is now has a new Department of Forestry money. Some departments of water have been collapsed into few of them, they have new names. So as the rapids was happening, the restructuring was also happening. So what we used to call the climate change department is now called Department of Climate Change and Carbon Trade. And this is the guidance that we got from the Ministry of Public Service and was effective there. So we talk about the climate change department, sometimes even them still learning. Because the climate change department, CCP, department of climate change and carbon trade. So we'll get there. So I work as Assistant Commissioner in the Department of Climate Change and Carbon Trade, and my work is to do with climate change adaptation and mitigation. So this morning I'll be talking a lot. Then in the afternoon, we shall have another person who will come and talk about it. But this is going to be interactive in nature. So I don't want to give lectures. Let it be interactive. At the end of the day, you can pick out what you can take home. We have made this presentation in two sections, but responding to the agenda item. One on the issues to do with mainstreaming, and I only have one slide in that direction. Then the rest of the slides are on item number 2, where we shall be diving more, because the number 1 synthesization of item number 1. What is that to have to do? So I'll be then starting to speak on item number 1. And item number 1, this is the only presentation I have. I hope everybody can see it. I have had the bosses from the districts, our chief administrative officers, and all their representatives. And from the 5 districts which are gathered here, the issue is about, is there climate change, first of all? Do you feel climate change? Because if you are not feeling it, then there is no reason not talking to it. It's not there. Or you expect it to be there. We have a few of climate change in our local governments, in one way or the other. Okay, so that's why now I want to talk about this thing. So the government of Uganda, so most of you know, joined the world in recognizing that things are not known in terms of climate. That's why in the 1990s, the world gathered and signed what we call the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. That is the UNFCCC. And we are a member of the UNFCCC. So we are not the only one who's there. There are many countries there, about 190 something countries. Okay, we are members. So if you're a member of something, it means that you satisfy with it. Okay, and you cannot be a member to any treaty or protocol where you are not affected, because it is about expressing your concern and interest in that. So as accepting to be a member of the United Nations Convention on Climate Change, it means that all the provisions and the principles that are governing the convention, that is the UNFCCC, are applicable to us. We are obliged to implement those articles of the convention. And the convention is simply responding to two challenges. That is adaptation and mitigation. Now, adaptation is coping to climate change. But the climate has changed, so we need to adapt, we need to cope, we need to live with the problem, isn't it? How we live with the problem is what we shall be discussing. How we live with the problem is case by case, isn't it? So that is adaptation. Adaptation to climate change, it means that we are going to deal with the impacts of climate change. That climate change is there, you have nowhere to go. What you have to do is to adapt. It's important to live the impact of what climate change while taking advantage and opportunity that climate change will make. That's what starts from that point, because as we're going to discuss, most people see on the adaptation, or they see on the climate change as a problem, isn't it? Isn't it? But also climate change presents some opportunities. That's what it is. So that's why adaptation is therefore defined in the convention is coping or adjusting of the system of the communities, not only people, and also the communities to the adverse impact of climate change, while taking opportunities to what would be the positive impact of climate change. So there is a negative and positive. Okay? Although when things are okay in our normal planning, we have planners here, there is no problem, isn't it? But when things are not okay, then there is a problem, isn't it? So that is what we call adaptation, and the conference of the parties, the UNFCCC, is actually trying to put mechanisms of how the societies, how the systems, how the structures can be able to live with the changing climate. Now, the changing climate we're talking about here is the deviation from the norm, isn't it? We have historical studies. If we say that temperatures in the Kisoro on average, isn't it, are 18 degrees, isn't it? I'm just giving an example. On average, that annual temperature or the mean annual temperature on average is 18 degrees. Now, when you make an assessment and you see that there is a deviation from your annual mean, maybe increasing, become 20, isn't it? Or reducing below 18, isn't it? There is a change. That's about climate change. Either what you want to do is the norm. Okay? So that is one angle of adaptation in which the convention is trying to respond. So meaning that if you have ever been in any particular area and you are unadult enough and you have experienced this changes either by a feel or by measure, isn't it? And you think that things are no longer normal, that means that there is a change in that place. Now, the changes is what we're talking about in terms of the weather elements. It can be temperature, it can be rainfall, it can be pressure, it can be humidity, it can be ABCD. Isn't it? in those other elements, then we talk about the change at that level. So that change can be lower than what you know, or it can be more than what you know in these elements. So how the climate change adaptation is to adapt to those changes from what you know, or from what you used to do, isn't it? So that's what the convention is actually trying to respond. Now, number two is the mitigation. I have had in the introduction that there is somebody who's working with the disaster from this other side. Now, the disaster mitigation definition is different from the disaster mitigation definition we use in climate sciences. Okay? Now, in mitigation of the climate science, we are talking about the causes. Whereas in disaster, we are talking about how do you, isn't it? Mitigate. Now, the disaster in the mitigation for climate science, we are talking about the greenhouse gases. Okay? How do we limit, how do we avoid? There are two terms. How do we avoid or how do we minimize the increase in greenhouse gases that are bringing what we call climate change? Because it's about the increase in those greenhouse gases that it is attracting temperature increase, isn't it? When there's temperature increase, then the resultant impacts are different in different areas depending on the physical and the geographical setup of certain areas. So in the climate change mitigation, we are talking about reducing greenhouse gases, isn't it? We either reduce or to completely avoid emissions. That's what we're talking about. So that is the other response. So now it brings into play that now the objective of now the United Nations Convention on Climate Change is to limit global warming. Now, when you are limiting global warming, you are supposed to undertake measures that are going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions in simple terms, while allowing the ecosystems and society to survive within the changing climate. So you want to limit emissions, isn't it? But allowing the ecosystems and society to survive within the climate change, the climate changes. It means that even when we stop emissions today, the greenhouse gases we're talking about, carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, etc. When they go in the atmosphere there, they have residence period. That even when they stop emissions today as well, the things are not going to reverse instantly. Because those greenhouse gases, they have residence period, isn't it? And their global warming potential, their contribution to warming is also not the same. Methane might be more dangerous than what? Than carbon dioxide. That's what we're going to say. Okay? So as we try to avoid emissions, isn't it? To mitigate or reduce emissions, and trying to make sure that we survive that adaptation, isn't it? So it does not going to be instant that we are going to normalize, we are going to bring it back to normal. So that is now the objective of the UNFCCC, reducing or lowering global temperatures, isn't it? By reducing emissions, while allowing the society and ecosystems to continue thriving in the changing climate. And therefore, for us to do that, all member parties within the UNFCCC, we are compelled to domesticate the objective, isn't it? To bring it back home. How do you domesticate that? You have to put institutions, you have to put laws, you have to put policies, you have to build capacity of your communities, and the technical people respond. Okay? Across all. And therefore, that necessitated that the government of Uganda developed a policy in 2015 to domesticate the convention from up to national level. Okay? Now, when the policy was developed, there are several that the policy comparing various institutions, including local governments. But importantly, it is good to understand that climate change is a constructive issue, that we have it in all the sectors, isn't it? So if you have climate change affecting sectors, or sectors contributing, this is the two way. If you have climate change where the sectors contribute to causing climate change, isn't it? And or where the sectors are impacted or affected by climate change, you have to respond in two ways. If our sector, one of the most impacted sectors is agriculture, isn't it? If there are changes in climate, isn't it? But also agriculture is one of the trouble causes of greenhouse gas emissions. Isn't it? You agree? So that means that agriculture, as you think impacted and you have to adapt, you also have to work on the mechanism of reducing greenhouse gases. Collectively, that's what we're going to say. So transport is impacted, but also transport is also causing climate change. Emissions coming from combustion of fossil fuels, from the diesel, etc., they go to the atmosphere, isn't it? But as well, when we talk about roads that are being damaged, what is using roads? So there is transporting, isn't it? So it is causing, but also is being impacted. So we should try to bring the two. So meaning that the government of Uganda saw it was that climate change being the starting issue. We needed to mainstream it across the board. Therefore, mainstreaming climate change is three things to do. Okay? One is that you identify the sources of emission coming out of the sector, isn't it? If you are in production, what are the sources of emissions coming out of your sector as production, isn't it? Are they coming from the livestock? Are they coming from corporate expression, isn't it? Then, when you identify the sources of emissions coming from our sector, that means that we have to identify measures to respond to what's reducing or avoiding emissions. But also, we need to find out how does then climate change impact my what? My sector, isn't it? Then we find out appropriate measures for building adaptation and resilience. So, number one is that when we're mainstreaming are the actions, isn't it? Identify the problems and the causes, and then you come up with actions to respond in simple terms. So now, that is the first part of it. When we're mainstreaming, this is now the mainstreaming you're talking about. When we're mainstreaming climate change, is you identify the challenges, isn't it? The causes and impact, and then you come up with actions. And this is where most of us stop. That is not total mainstreaming. Isn't it? This is where most of us stop. That for us to mainstream climate change is that what are the problems, how do we go to the problem, and what action can you undertake? Isn't it? Then you have your measures. Want to do climate smart agriculture, isn't it? Want to promote resilience in transport, like you want to do those proper harvests, isn't it? The local governments, so that now you can avoid flooding in some sections of the road, etc., etc., etc. Now, that is the starting point, isn't it? Now, to finish the whole story of mainstreaming is that you have to find out the targets which is going to implement those that have mainstreamed. Okay? So once you have identified the intervention for adaptation and mitigation, now I think we know adaptation and mitigation. We have to go and explore what resources do we need to implement adaptation and mitigation? That is, because putting them in your plans, like I mentioned them, does not resonate that you are going to implement them. Isn't it? You have them, but they are not implemented. So I think mainstream. So mainstreaming is the action and the corresponding budget. That's what we call mainstreaming. Okay? So for us to do that, in 2014, working with the National Planning Authority, the Ministry of Water and Environment developed what we call the climate change mainstreaming guidelines. Those guidelines are due for revision. But the guidelines are providing a step-by-step approach on how we can mainstream climate change. It was a step-by-step approach. How can we mainstream climate change? But always there has been a question mark by those that have pushed the guidelines. Okay, we have known the step-by-step process. Now, how practical can we do this? So it will not come in other words. Because a step-by-step process is what the AI can provide for, isn't it? But how practically being hands-on with it has been missing. So now, in ensuring that we bring in the hands-on, two elements have been done. One is the climate and the disaster risk training tools. These are available in these sectors. Now, these tools, they give you a practical element on how you can extreme climate change. They take you through risk identification, risk assessment, okay? Then you are able to identify the impact. Then you are able to identify the response measure that you can undertake. Then at the end of the day, you can come up with a practical intervention to extreme climate change. So this one gives us the interventions. It brings you to reaching out the interventions that you're going to do in the extreme. Okay? So the climate and disaster risk tool, those of you who have internet here, you test it. It is an online tool. You work with the World Bank and try to do this in production, in transport, in energy, in ecosystems, because we're talking about the environment. Forest biodiversity, in the health, and in water. Those tools are practical and are available and they are online tools. All what we need is getting somebody to train us on how to do this. Meaning that with these technical tools, there is no longer excuse on that. How do we do it back? These tools are available. What we need to do is to keep doing capacity building, okay, on the use of these tools, because they provide that practical element. Number two, I said that having intervention is not enough. What about the budget? Isn't it? Now, the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development is already tagging. We have planners. Planners, have you ever came across about those two additional budget codes? Budget code, I think there is 19 and 20. Of 19 and 20, one is for coding adaptation, the other is for coding mitigation. They are there. And the thing is, now, this is where it's coming from. That once you have identified the interventions, isn't it? Of adaptation and mitigation, isn't it? Now, the Minister of Finance will go ahead and target those adaptation and mitigation, and then to able to find out what are the corresponding budgets related to the intervention that are verified yourself in terms of climate change adaptation. If you don't know how to do this, then there is capacity building that you can offer. Okay? In terms of target adaptation and target mitigation, because this is where the challenge now is coming from. Because if you don't know adaptation and you don't know mitigation, you're just going to be targeting. Okay? Because those two budget lines, one is for adaptation, the other one for mitigation. The one which is for adaptation is tracking the intervention for measuring resilience or the interventions for dealing with climate change impacts, isn't it? Now, the other budget code of mitigation is trying to tag what are those actions that you are putting in your budgeting that are going to respond to mitigation, the cause of climate change. So those are the budget tags that's going to go to. So it is now trying to add up. Simply, if you know how properly to tag, isn't it? Adaptation mitigation, somebody can assess your budget and know what is the appropriate or the percentage budget you have allocated to addressing adaptation, the one that you have allocated to addressing mitigation. But now the way how things are moving, find adaptation is mixed into mitigation, mitigation is mixed into adaptation, isn't it? So, but it's actually a good capacity building. For those that are really doing the actual budgeting, isn't it? Can be able to target adaptation and mitigation appropriately in our budgeting processes. Okay? That is another element. Now, to concretize it, which is number 3, certificate of climate compliance, is that the Ministry of Water and Environment, one with NPA, will issue a certificate of climate compliance, the budget framework papers. All what we do, we have not yet come to the district level. We have not gone to do the ministerial statement, but also we have not gone lower, isn't it? At this level, started with the program. Isn't it? We know that we operate the certain programs, proper programs. So what we are doing, we say let's start it at program level. As we shall try now to try to translate it down now to go into the actual budgets of various institutions and districts. So it began with the program level, and what is being done is the assessing the level of compliance of the budget framework paper, but looking at program level. Now, government of Uganda, coming the other financial year, we are going to get out of the program, go to the sector level. Because this has been issued in the programs, and some people are surviving with that. Because issued in the program, then there are institutions in the program or sectors that are not performing very well, but there are those which are also trying to perform. Now, because it is presented as an average, isn't it? Even those that are not performing well are also getting neighbor to the averages. I think you get what I'm trying to say. Okay, so we started to do it at that level. That's why when we send this budget paper without a certificate of climate compliance, it means that finance representative parliament, no budget approval. So we issue that certificate of climate compliance to the minister responsible for finance to table the budget to parliament with a certificate showing how have we been responsive in the budgeting processes. Okay, but I'm telling you, this will go beyond budget framework papers at program level, then it will start to go to institution level, isn't it? So as we are trying to do this, we are also obliged to build capacity. So how do we now do this? And it is very dangerous to set an exam, isn't it? When you have not been in the lecture, isn't it? So at program level, we are playing the program leads. But this will start to go individual institutions and then start to cascade down to specific districts. But this will be something important because it is trying to now complete the story from the guidelines to practical to tagging the budget to issue certificates. So that is the journey in mainstreaming. Okay? And this is where we are now. And certificate issuance, but we keep on rolling. You first create a demand. When you create a demand, then you come back and respond to the technical capacities. Because if you start by this, by experience, people are not going to respond because they will ask you, under which law are you doing this? That is a question that you've been asking with public servants. Why are you telling us to do this and this? So sometimes you first respond to the demand, and then it becomes competitive. But also, as you do that, you know that the capacity gap and have people are building. So, moderator, that is the first presentation.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. I know you've picked so many issues from what he has presented, but you also could be having questions or comments. So at this point, from where he left, we learned the tools for mainstreaming and the steps for mainstreaming and why they actually use the mainstreaming. So if there are any questions, please feel free. Put up your hand.
Why do I mention?
One is to appreciate the input in this, and you can give us a capacity plan about climate change and compliance in our districts. I just wanted to let you know that as districts, from the Natural Resources Department, we are really lacking your, let's say, capacity building from the line ministry or line departments. So I've got a chance to meet you and tell you about this. That we need to like technical backstory. I think we last had this like 2 years back. And now we are back. We had already forgotten about the screening tool. So if I don't get maybe somebody to keep pushing us or giving us that capacity, because logging in, I think, was the challenge and we left it out. So we need maybe the district support team or staff to keep engaging us and making sure that we are having this decentralized function under a department being implemented. Then another thing is about, you are talking about the greenhouse gases. And in my mind, when you're talking about the global warming, I mean, this is my expectation. That I also expected to hear about the ozone layer depletion by the hydrofluorocarbons, which is also a big threat within this country. Because at our level as districts, we really can't control the hydrofluorocarbons because they are really at the higher level of management and regulation. So as a department, maybe we talk about it, how you're handling it, and so that we also get hope that we are under control up there. And so please.
Yes, that's the last group process. My business question. Was you highlighted the process prior to the upgrade? So after the certificate of the report last, approved, and then implemented the how both happens. Here, the plan actually. The budgets that people are committed for the actions that undertaken, the mitigation adjustment are implemented, and if not, what will be the implication of that?
Okay, so then can we respond to what is please about?
Thank you very much. I would like to give a clarification. The members of the district that are specifically from the environment and natural resources sectors. Yet, climate change affects almost every sector. This awareness raising you have opened up to will target the environment and natural resources sector, excluding those sectors that are not here present. What are we going to do to take care of those sectors? I talk about transport, talk about this, local public development.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. Commissioner, maybe I wanted to come to a colleague. They work with the planners to ensure that all issues that are raised with the ministries and the working plans. And I think that justifies the reason why we are here. Ensure that whatever we're going to discuss here, we're making the commissioner, in your presentation, you mentioned something to do with cross-cutting issues, of course, those changes. And maybe
You are aware that the government from the beginning, by the way, from DFP, they are saying that if an entity submits any document without integrating almost environmental issues, climate change issues, cannot be approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And finally, issues. So, that's what we do. Continue to look at it. Also, also, that's why we try to pass the law is very clear. The part we look at it in the public training, when you go to the local level, the responsibility of the department of resources. Similarly, what we are doing here is what that department has to do. Because yes, we are telling the zone capacity, the zone resources, but that's what the process is. So the overall coordination of the actions at this level is the responsibility of the department responsible for transactions. That's why we are going to move forward. I think it's the question to say. If they don't have capacity, they are not expected to do what they are seeing in the So meaning that if you have adequate capacity in the existing local government, the natural resources, they will be to try to do similar trainings in the community and this to take you for level, including other people areas that may not be in the system. Like they said, as civil society, they are very in the system to ensure that this is so that is what the structure is going to give us. So we are doing this in line with that. But also we appreciate that the capacity gaps. That's why capacity building, the awareness is not the one that is continuous. New things are coming, you have to update yourself. New things are coming, you have to update yourself. And that is how it should be. But also having all of them, is also something good. Because now there are two questions that they are asking my sister there, and she may not respond to them, isn't it? When they are asking that level, for example, if the client is asking about the climate change and other additional information, and is unable to kind of articulate that, because of the capacity limitations, means that even those other institutions, those other departments at the local government also have to come together. That now, as they do their job from the resources, it is also the other departments that also hear it from the process now, of how we treat it. So that's how it should be. But sometimes it's because of the limitations with the budgeting that we could not bring it again further. Because where I want to be with that, not very strict approach for the so meaning that the natural resources have to know how transport has been executed. They have to know the reporting, how it has been implemented. They have to identify research gaps and capacity and needs. If they are different, you see how that not happens with that. Now, I think my neighbor here is asking, after here, where do we go? Executive. So now, the National Planning Authority has been doing certificate of compliance to the budget, but looking at the expenditure bit. This one is planning. This one goes for planning. I think what the budget are for planning. Now, when it comes to expenditure, the MPA now leads that process. We have been doing that. We support from upon that. We've been attending that. So the MPA is now coming and look at now. What about the expenditure? Apparently, there is no law compelling us to put sanctions or to put penalties. But also it is communicated with practices. Maybe where we are moving, you will see what if somebody, if your budget is 20% talking about climate change, first and foremost, you receive that budget. Because that is one thing, but also rent is also another thing. Did you receive that budget? It's a yes or no. If it is a yes, have the money been spent on those items that were identified that were assessed as climate change. So now that is the exercise that we undertake. While we are doing expenditure tracking, NPA takes the lead and support. While we are doing the actual planning, we read and NPA takes down and support. So that is now how the tracking is being done. But as I already told you that at planning level, there is already a mismatch between adaptation and mitigation. And this is what we have to correct. But also at finance, you also have to compare them, because why this is done by, why the expenditure is actually done by NPA is to put finance that this is the budgets that the institutions are going to. And this is how much going to improve adaptation. And in terms of proportion, this is mitigation, this is what. Now, the institutions have not implemented this because they have not listened. Because you cannot allow somebody to be blamed to assess themselves. I hope I'm communicating. It would have been done by finance, but finance is where I want to get resources. Is the planning resonant well with credits and expenditure? Now that's the logic of council. So that we are doing, but the unfortunate thing is that if you find that it is provide information for people in terms of population and planning, but it is not whether it is now eligible. Okay, so it's something that you can look into the future, but this is apparently right now is what we are attending. So this stops at planning level, but in terms of expenditure is what now NPA assesses. And then we find out some of the reasons whether what was planned is what was released, and now those that do the government monitoring in OPM also come and do their part. So this is how one can take it, but it is still a barrier. Now, I think the first questions came from my sister there about expecting to talk about ozone layer. It would have been good to talk about it, but I was dealing with the terms of references because okay, but it is good. Now, the ozone layer, we are looking at DC GHG. Also, we look at the emissions that are coming from the Montreal Protocol elements. Okay? Now, in the ozone layer, what we monitor within our GHG element is the fluorocarbons and hydrocarbons. Okay? That is coming from the translations and the information coming from the use of the SCCPC. Okay? So when we get this data and information from the URA about the imports, the imports that is coming into the country, then we use that information to try to estimate what would be the magnitude of those important refrigerators and then the SC containers that would be associated with our greenhouse gases. Now, into the atmosphere, specifically for Uganda, it is very difficult to measure that. Because what we find in the atmosphere might not be specifically an activity that are taking place in Uganda. It could be coming from the neighbors or far. So now, that one is very difficult to measure the contribution of those particular gases into the atmosphere itself by a single country. So what countries do is actually looking at the normal activities of the population within the country. Okay? For example, how much of the fuel, as an example, are we consuming in Uganda? That is consumption of the fuel. Then you say that our emissions in terms of fuel use is this much. But now, when you go to the atmosphere, it is very difficult to say that now this one was banned from Uganda. This one from Tanzania. It is only the national greenhouse gas figure that can communicate the values in quantities that is in the atmosphere, but you can't classify them when you are monitoring the atmosphere. But now, probably, the emissions are monitored, and they are given with absolute figures, but they cannot disaggregate them that this is US service, unless when you go to the payment, then you can find a lot of one. Now, that, like I already said, it has implication on the person. But the impact is measured globally. It is not national contribution. That is, there's implication on the person there, as usual, and the impact is measured globally. But globally, they cannot classify that this is from this country. So what they do, they are looking at the country's inventories, terms of conditions. Then at that point, they can say, USA is contributing this much. Uganda is contributing this much. But if you go up there, then you can't tell that out of this person, this one is Uganda, this one is this. It is not happening in that direction. That's why the address is global. Can go by them, take actions, negative, to see how we reduce those conditions. So that now can stabilize all that. Our atmosphere, where even the person the system. On the issues of capacity, the screening, I take note, it has been long overdue. There are issues with people's login, but all these have been already corrected. When you go online, you can need to find out this, you can log in and you'll be able to start that. But the aspect of capacity building, we have also an online component and physical component. Okay? Here is what we do. The request as a district, for example, that we want to confess a certificate, give us an online capacity building of that one of them in some districts. Because the physical one would have been better, but it has the many challenges. Those challenges, timing and all that kind. But also offer the physical. Okay? We have resources, we organize districts and go to them. Even when the districts have their own resources, again, we come resources. And also, there is a mechanism to deliver it at the request. Because what we want to do is to build TOTs in the district. Yes, if you are a trainer of trainers, that is accountable, other members can learn from you. People improve in that direction. Okay? So I'm recommending that if you have such kind of avenues, we are available to do the physical one. If you have resources, ask moving to the district. But if the district also has support, we can come and deliver the training physically, but also there's animal management. Okay? I think this is what I can speak about class.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. You can clap again for the Commissioner. For yourselves for being attentive in the first session. So if we don't have any other comments, we can have our breakfast. Then we can proceed to the next agenda item. Is that the back? Feel free to pick a cup of tea and a bite. And then we shall return at 11 and continue with our program.
Because.
Hello.
Morning, everyone. My name is Anthony. For the climate action,
You will get your video. Good morning to all. For the minutes in the sun, this will come in the world. Morning, everyone.
Welcome. You're all very welcome to this meeting. We are proceeding with the Dccap guidelines. I invite the commissioner to take us on.
Okay, welcome back from Israel. Now, number 2. So I begin the first part. Off. So yes. So under this, we're talking about this climate change action plan. And I think this is what we are going to have. We understand what the Dccap is. Dccap is this climate change action plan. Why do we need the Dccap? The structure of the Dccap. There are some modules that you have got to correlate within the guidelines of the Dccap. Okay? Some modules divide us from the practical element step by step. Then we'll talk about this climate analysis, because the fourth component when we talk about the Dccap. That's why we talk about the climate risk and the climate assessment. We shall know what it is. Shall talk about the technical inventory for the district and the data aspect. Then number 5, identifying actions that we take to do our district development plan. How do you identify this action? This is the task. We're talking about the guidelines. Then how do we then prioritize these actions? Okay? How to prioritize the actions? Then data plan must we have an implementation framework and the implement. And then lastly, we see how we get started. This will not be the first one, but we decided to put it at the last because we need to understand how we get started. So next. This might not be visible for all of you, but we share the public presentation. Why the Dccap? It's very simple. The National Climate Change Bureau of the President of the world compels all local governments to involve climate action. I just took a snapshot in the law. This is the section in the law. Just took a picture, we use it in this. So if you ask why we need to go to the Dccap, first and foremost, it is mandatory. Now, here is where public delegates who come and devote to that Dccap. So from there, I want to understand, it is not the responsibility of the climate change party or the Department of Climate Change You go and start the road with the data. It is actually 100% your responsibility. That the district for the problem, you go to school one, this implemented action plan. And the question is simple. We have what we call the National Government Action Plan, which is the NDC. Now, they are about the NDC, the National Government Contribution. It is the National Government Action Plan. Now, for us to implement that National Government Action Plan, it is not mandatory that all of us have to put that in plan. So we can just domesticate that action plan in terms of how do we see us already to be. And maybe it's the challenge that we face in our patients, in our district. In the action plan, the national one, we will find things of increasing the production capacity of electricity. You have to do that. That's what I said. The national action plan is at high level. But for us to implement the area specific now our districts, we have to look at how is climate change impacting us as a district. Now, go into the predictions now. Go to the power. How is climate change impacting us? How are we contributing to climate change? We are looking at those locations. So now, all what you do at the assessment is what you are supposed to implement, and you put in your action plan, you contribute to the plan. Okay, so now, just to say is that when you go to section 7 of the climate change law, cap 182, each district in Uganda shall, what is shall? Shall is shall a very big one for you. You have to ask.
Yes.
Shall, isn't it? Each district in Uganda shall develop a district climate change action plan within 1 year to develop the plan. Are we late or are we late? We are late. So, government of Uganda is currently working with the new climate action plan. We have had NDC 0.1, we have had NDC 0.2, and we are currently in the final stage of finalizing NDC 3.0, which is going to be our latest climate plan. Okay? So now, but within the finalization within 1 year, the government issued the National Climate Action Plan, all districts in Uganda expected to develop their climate action plan because there has to be delivery. That's what it means. The way we have the National Development Plan and the District Development Plan. Is not everything in the NDPs is actually in the DDPs. That's what it means. But here is just focusing on climate change. Now, and he says that a district climate action plan shall include an assessment of the current and the predicted impact of climate change on the area under the jurisdiction of the district. I think I want us to get to that because you know how is this done? Let us first get the scope. That you have to undertake an assessment of the current and the predicted impact of climate change in the area under the jurisdiction. Okay, this is an action plan. It is going to be a personal plan. That's why you remove what is current and what is predicted. Because when we are planning, we plan for current and predicted. So that's what it's saying. So we have to do an assessment of the impact of climate change on the current and the predicted. And the B include an assessment of the vulnerability impact and the risk of climate change on the area under the jurisdiction of the district. That's why we talk about the CRFPs. Isn't it? Some people don't know how you are going to emphasize during climate risk. environmental assessment. It's the only way you can understand the climate hazards, okay? The exposure, the sensitivity, adaptive capacity, and the determinant. This is existing in across all sectors, all communities. So, you undertake a vulnerability assessment. And C include a statement of the strategy, policies, actions, adaptation, and mitigation. That once you have done a risk assessment of climate change in the current and predicted, you must in the Dccap include a statement of the strategies that will undertake for adaptation and mitigation. First portion. Now, when you do a CRVA, level 2 scientific assessment, it is needed to do adaptation. That is what we call adaptation assessment. Now, that is not the mitigation. So if they say that in the Dccap that we have to include adaptation strategies and mitigation strategies, it is also completely just to what we call mitigation assessment. Understanding the sources of emissions, isn't it? And what you can do to minimize or reduce emissions across the sector. We have to develop that. Okay? Then D, identify the action to be undertaken by the district to build resilience, climate change, and indicate the strategies to be adopted and undertake capacity building for the staff of the district and other stakeholders engaged in climate related activities. So the aspect of capacity also comes in there. Now, I may not tell the capacity gaps that we may not tell the capacity gaps that the community have if you not do capacity gaps analysis. Isn't it? So the capacity gap analysis that is required is for the staff, isn't it? For our institutions, for the communities and other areas for implementation. So that part also contributes to what we do as capacity needs in the district level. So now this will be okay. In summary, the law compels each district to develop the district level. Now that Dccap have to be finalized within 1 year when we got the new Uganda information plan. Okay? Through that Dccap, it has to be the focus on the prediction of the risk. What is what we're going to implement. Don't do outside what we're going to implement. The mandate of the district is to implement interventions within your prediction. And we undertake current and projected climate change risks and hazards, and be able to identify the measures of adaptation, but also undertake an assessment of mitigation just to understand where the emissions is coming from, which sectors it is coming from, and what we can do. It also informs the mitigation of the global Dccap, and on top of that, you need to undertake a past risk assessment, because it is one thing to have a Dccap, but also it's another thing to have the right institution, the tools, and the people to be able. Aaron? The final one. Final ABC. Yes, we can work, but it does not stop you to start. Because these assessments, for example, we will not start again if resources are explained. Because whenever if there is an NBC, you have to do the assessment, adaptation and mitigation. Isn't it? So these ones they are the most important, because this is what we're going to zero down on. Then this is the problem that we have in terms of the election. This is how it is affecting us. These are the capacity gaps that we do. That now when we were trying to put up the intervention in the Dccap, you already addressing the problems at hand. You're not addressing the problem of Kapara, addressing the problem of food. This is the okay, in terms of climate change. So that is what it gives. And then I'll tell you in detail what we may require to do, isn't it? Now, number 3 is that a district climate change action plan shall apply to the whole of the district. That is number one. The whole of the district in totality, or any part of the district, and a district may develop different action plans to apply to different parts of the district. That is, so you may choose to do sub-county wide, isn't it? And to have an action plan for that particular sub-county. Or you may choose to do for the entire what? For the entire district, but you always recommend people. Better to do for the entire district. Because at the end of the day, you are the same platform for others, not the students part in those areas. And we shall tell you how we are going to talk in those areas. The guidance can enable you to do a particular part of the district, but it's the same guidance that can enable you to do for the entire district. Okay? That is important. And then the climate change action plan referred to in section 7, section 1, up here, section 1, shall be consistent with the framework strategy on climate change in section 4 of the law and the National Climate Change Action Plan referred to in section 5 of the law. Isn't it? Now, the framework strategy has already been before. That is the long-term plan. And the action plan, they are divided number which we are going to finalize. So if you say that the historical action plan is actually just downscaling, isn't it? What can be done in the particular district? That's why the limit is the National Action Plan and the framework strategy. Okay? And then lastly, that a district shall vanish the department. The department is the department of what? Climate change and carbon trade. With a copy of the Climate Change Action Plan and its subsequent amendment, modification and revision within 1 month after adoption. So after the district has adopted that Climate Change Action Plan, within 1 month or an amendment, we send a copy to the Climate Change Department and update the minister that this takes alliance, this is their climate change plan. But why is the climate change action plan important even before we go to elections? We have been talking about mainstreaming climate change. If you have a detailed climate change action plan, you ask the government to climate change plan, very easy, because you know what you want to do. It's just an extract of what the sectors want to do for climate change, align them to your DDPs. And from the DDPs, that's what can do and work that. So the ask the government will be very, very easy. Because you are extracting from your climate change action plan what you can do, isn't it? So it makes the mainstream in terms of intervention a little bit easier than just into the planting. That's how the history has been. Climate change, the plan has come and they said, we have made some climate change. We have a good planting and finish. Isn't it? But it is beyond that now, isn't it? It is beyond that. It's beyond the tree and the water protection. It is upwards go. So that is from the law. Next. Now from the law, as it is, the climate change department of the department is climate change and carbon credit. In the law, is supposed to develop regulations. That is, those are implemented by regulations and the guidelines. Isn't it? Now, this is one of the guidelines that you're going to do. Before you are told to do a Dccap, because if there is no format for Dccap, you can develop, assessor can develop, CISO can develop, the format can develop, but using different formats and different before. Isn't it? Now, the guideline is to provide guidance, as we get guidance, on how do we start to go climate action plan. So it gives a structured process, isn't it? that if you are to develop this community action plan, you do A, B, C, D. That's the guide. Guide. Do this to fit into this. Do this to contribute to this. Do this to contribute to this. If you have this guidance, at least I expect what is coming from the former. So you expect some bit of resemblance of the structure of the Dccap. So there are these people who are trying to do the Dccaps, and we appreciate what they have done because there was no guidance. But again, there is a lot of gaps, isn't it? We appreciate what they have done because there was no guidance. And everybody has been saying, where's the guidance, where's the guidance? Because everybody, you are using their own formats. Okay? Now, apparently, we have tried to develop the guidance that are going to unify the way how we think in terms of global guidance. But does not necessarily mean that going to give us the same results. Okay. Communicate the same information, but different results. Because the child is agreeing, isn't it? So now, in the Dccap, if you can move this one down, I will start by guidance on the formulation of the Dccap. Now, this is how we expect the Dccap to be. This is how it is expected. That a good Dccap, or what we call local climate action plan. That's why we never get point Dccap all the time. Because even the municipality has self-planning institution, they also have to develop and use the same process. Now we are saying that the local climate action plan, including for the district, must have a vision where one in terms of climate change. If your vision is to increase emission, you are off the national vision, national direction. That for us in the Toma, we want to increase emission and increase vulnerability. You are doing opposite. Because what the country wants is to reduce emissions and lower vulnerabilities. That's why we have to lead it to the national action plan. Now, you may say for you from Tungamu, just an example, that our vision of the Dccap is to increase the emission and increase vulnerability. We are doing opposite of the national interest. That is it. So you must have vision, isn't it? Now, under the vision, there has to be clear goals. But we shall look at how do you set the goals, isn't it? How do you set the vision? This may come a little bit later, but when you are doing your Dccap, set the vision, set the goals. What is it that you want to achieve in the lens of climate change? Isn't it? Well, and then these are very important parts because they contribute to the parts which we expect in the Dccap. In each of the local government Dccap, we expect an adaptation component, isn't it? We expect a mitigation component and we expect the delivery mechanism. Now, the delivery mechanism are those interventions that enable us to do the adaptation and mitigation. They can be generated, they can be capacity building and manage itself. Isn't it? All of these ones, they go to the delivery mechanism. The mechanism, the delivery, is to help us to do the adaptation and mitigation, because these are the core actions of climate change. But in the delivery mechanism, we appreciate the agenda related things in climate change, which need to address and adaptation and mitigation. The issues to do with capacity. Capacity is for institutions, isn't it? Capacity is for the technical, capacity is for the community. We need to address them to implement adaptation and mitigation. And we may require resources, money, isn't it? So all these are ranged into what we call component of pillar number 3 of the Dccap. But now this pillar here is an enabler for us to do mitigation and adaptation. I think I'm complimenting. If you don't have strong institution, you will not implement adaptation and mitigation. Isn't it? We have said that the coordination of climate action in the district is the responsibility of the natural resources department. Now, if the natural resources department don't have people, staff in it, Is that going to be done? No, that is an institution part. That is, if there is not enabling bylaws, if there are no tools maybe to enable, that is, the adaptation and mitigation will be near for the implementation. As I said, we're talking about the capacity is for the institution that can be policies, strategies, that is, structures, but also capacity in terms of the technical know-how, isn't it? And also capacity of the communities. That's why the capacity should not always come at us. I always give people an example. Like, allow me to use this example. That in some health centers, isn't it? There are equipments that government has bought. Isn't it? Those equipments are there. But again, there are capacity gaps to use those equipments. Isn't it? So is the problem an equipment or the people themselves use the equipment? And then you can help people who know how to use the equipment, but the equipment is not there. Isn't it? So that's why I'm talking about capacity. It's not all about the human that you should know this and this. Talk about the capacity in terms of the equipment, in terms of the laboring policies, in terms of the laboring law, and the chief administrative officer. If you have a bylaw that allow people maybe to do open agriculture that they ban, let me just say an example, that they do bush and ban, then you allow them. And then in the climate change strategy, we are saying that maybe this is going to be to the mission, then you should not do that. Because that the bylaw does not fit the strategy. So meaning that when the technical officer are going to execute, might be fixed within the available bylaw. That's as an example. The willingness to do might be there, but the rules that don't permit. That's why we're talking about capacity is a strong element. The component of delivery is actually looking at the neighboring environment, enable us to do the mitigation and adaptation. We're spending time on this one because the rest of the things we are going to discuss are actually going to this. Now, I go down. For us to do adaptation, we undertake climate risk and vulnerability assessment across all sectors we have done. Okay? For us to decide what intervention we want to do an adaptation, you have to do climate analysis. How the environment was, how it is, and how it's permitted to be. Isn't it? Now you go back and then you say, now, what are available risks? Isn't it? And what are the protected risks? Isn't it? Then you go back and say, which sector is impacted with these risks? Isn't it? You identify the sector that is impacted, the sector impact, and again the current and the future, isn't it? Then you go back and say another step. What is it that you can do to make this sector adaptive or increasing resilience in the sector? That is what we talk about climate risk and vulnerability assessment. Because it is the only thing that can lead you to propose appropriate measures for adaptation that are speaking to your own jurisdiction. That's why when you see here that you do assessment in all sectors, isn't it? You will do in works and transport, you will do in education, you will do in natural resources, you will do in production, isn't it? Production, you are looking at livestock, if you have it, isn't it? You are looking at fisheries, if you have fisheries, you are looking at crop, isn't it? If you have a crop, okay? Then all these sectors that you have in the government, you are all to subject them to climate risk, isn't it? And identify the magnitude of the problem. Now and in the future. That's when we will come up with appropriate measures to make now the sector become resilient when we make actions. And that is what contributes to the adaptation component of the Dccap. Isn't it? Meaning that in writing, you talk about the problem, and then you come up with the solutions per sector. Isn't it? Per sector. Now, under mitigation is what my colleague is talking about in the evening or afternoon. Now, in mitigation, you also go to these sectors and say, okay, what are the sources of emissions? Isn't it? In our districts. We're looking at the sector. For example, in the source of emissions, you have forest degradation and deforestation. Isn't it? If you have the data information, you can be able to compute the emissions coming out from forest degradation and deforestation. Isn't it? Within the district. If you have the population of animals, isn't it? And their feeding characteristics in the district, you can be able to compute the emissions coming out of that. Isn't it? Within the district, we are using that local data to use it to compute, isn't it? If we have information pertaining wastewater and solid waste, isn't it? In terms of the current, it is easy to compute the emission coming out of this, isn't it? Like that, because we are identifying the source of the emissions. And at the end of it, you are only looking at the magnitude of the problem now and the future, because you can do the model and protect, isn't it? And then you come up with appropriate measure that can help you to respond in terms of reduction or avoid it. And this is things that go under the mitigation, isn't it? Now, when you come here, you do capacity building assessment, isn't it? Institution, policies, communities. You also have to do a gender analysis in terms of climate change, isn't it? Now, these are several assessments which are going to inform what you put in our Dccap. And then, depending on these ones, then you come up with the financing, isn't it? The financing is easy, can be done, and then the monitoring framework and action, and then M&E. Now, this one may not even do a lot of work, because now the law has already spelled out how the monitoring and coordination of this is going to be this. That is, with the natural resources, that coordination element. There is no much, and then the M1 is help you to track the progress of implementation of your Dccap, isn't it? That is how, and the Dccap is not implemented alone. It is actually integrated in the district government plan and annual plan. Don't say that now we are going to implement this, isn't it? This one is just giving you scientific and economic information, yes, that you can use to integrate in the DDPs and your work plans and budgets. But also it can attract the government partner to make other interventions, because we want them to find you when you are ready. That's why we encourage you to do for the entire district. We don't want any other partner to come to you and then they go back in terms of assessment. No, tell them we know our problem, we know what we want to do. If you want to come and implement, here is the list where you belong. You start from implementation, no more assessments. Okay? So, similarly, that is how the Dccap is structured. That's why I'm providing the guidelines. Now, when you go to your district, your Dccap, we expect you to have a vision. Is there a vision? Is there a goal? Is there an adaptation component? It is there. How was it done? Adaptation component was informed by climate risk and environmental assessment, and there was climate modeling. And these are the interventions that have come out of this assessment. Is there an mitigation component? Yes. How was it done? It was informed by the mitigation assessment report, identified the sources of emissions and the gases. And now these are the interventions to propose and this discharge. As simple as that. What about the issues of gender? They are taken care of, outpost adaptation and mitigation. This is what we want to do. What about institutional capacity? It is informed by capacity assessment. That at the district level and sub-county level, at institution, this is what is required because of the problem which is existing. Now, this is what is required technically by the technical people, and this is what is required by the communities implementing this. Isn't it? You are almost there. And then we cost them, and you put M1 different. When do you want to implement this? Okay. What is the target? What is the quantity? What do we intend to implement it? For those measures, of course. If you say we want to do piped water systems, how many kilometers do you want to do? Within 10 years, isn't it? That now somebody will come, the first year we did 2. Just give me an example, isn't it? Maybe at the end of the year or the end of the Dccap story, isn't it? The implementation period, you have done the 10 kilometers. Okay? We want to demarcate wetlands. What is the kilometers you want to demarcate? So you quantify the times and indicators, isn't it? To help us to monitor. And also there is a money bit, isn't it? That money can come from our budget, can be released from the private sector, etc. But we want to become a risk, isn't it? Next. That can summarize what I'm about to say. Now, here is just a small detail, isn't it? So the guideline is helping you to go through all that. The guideline is just helping you to go through all that. If there is a question that you want to ask, I think I can first pause here and see the two. Is there a question on the previous one? Or we go into the detail now, try to see. Okay, good. Please stop me if there is something. I said let us be interactive. Now, Uganda's climate challenges, we know all these things. Either you have all of them or you have one of them, isn't it? And that is the challenge. Either you have all of them or you have one of them. We are not saying that they have to be there in all your localities, isn't it? But also what we need to appreciate that even when we go to the lower local governments, they are not also affected in the same way, isn't it? That's why when you go to certain districts, they tell you the other part of the district is wetter than this one, isn't it? The other part of the district is susceptible to landslides, the sub-county, isn't it? Than this other sub-county. This one is low lying and there's heavy rains and there's service may be susceptible to what? Loads of flooding, isn't it? So there is no uniform kind of like a climate hazards. So what you need to do is that if you have one of these ones in your area, then it is mandatory for you to start thinking about how you respond to this. Isn't it? You can have multiple of them. Now the mandate, I talked about it. Why a Dccap is by law, isn't it? And I mentioned that it is not the department to develop, it is your responsibility. The department can only come and give a technical know-how, isn't it? How to do it. And this is what we said. And then I said that this has to be linked to the NDCs, the National Climate Action Plan, in that regard. Now, we have a target as a country in our National Climate Action Plan of reducing greenhouse gases by 24.7%. Isn't it? GHG. But I have told you that that is the NDC 2.0. Right now, we are working to increase on our ambition. And I think the draft NDC we have, it is increasing this target of reducing emissions at national level by 33.35%. And we are able to, we shall determine what will be the contribution of each sector to the reduction of greenhouse gases in that percentage. Because this is the time that we had that time. We had a percentage, but we never went through trying to find out what is the contribution of each and every sector, the 24.7%.
So, you, when you go in a new climate action plan, you will go back to the state targets. Make sure that they are made or they were not made, then try to reach the gaps.
It's a very good question. We always do what we call the stock take of the implementation of the previous one. The good things will continue with them. There are good things, but we are very different. Then we improve them. There are those that we think that we no longer continue with them. Those are the block there. But also there are new ones that we have to do. So we do what we call the stock take. And I think that will also bring the question that most of the districts in Uganda have not developed the Dccaps. There are those who have attempted to develop but using various formats. But again, one of the most challenges that are existing is the data. Because you see that it's a lot of assessment. The Dccap is involved by scientific and sociological assessment, isn't it? then there's lots of data here. That's why when you go into the Dccap in the structure formulation, isn't it? Those areas that you found missing data, isn't it? You make them as actions in the Dccap, you start collecting data from them. Because the Dccap is updated after 5 years. The way you can take the plan. It means that if you are lacking data on fuel used in the district, isn't it? That means that you put it as an action that you start to collect that what? That data. Because in the next modeling, you may need to use that data to model the emission coming out of the fuel used in the district. So when you do this, you generate a lot of data and you have to keep it. Because it will be the starting point. And who is supposed to keep it? The Environment and Natural Resources Office. They keep that data because there will be time to update the Dccap. Isn't it? So all elements which are missing data, but they will be good to contribute to the mitigation or adaptation, then we turn them into action, correct the data in this. Isn't it? Then you have the issue is that you develop tools and start correcting data. Let me just use a level example for energy, isn't it? Now, when I have a car and I buy fuel in your district, and I drive, I go through your district, I come back to Kampala. Is that emissions coming out of that fuel? Are they counted from your district or not your district? Because
I think they should be for the district. Look at the source of the fuel.
the source of the fuel. So the source of the fuel, okay, here is Kampala. I get fuel from here, I go to the well. Now, it is from the source of the district, but not from where it's being bad.
Yes, simply because it might not be easy to track each and every vehicle.
Moving within the district premises. Now, these are the assumptions that come with the modeling mechanism that you have to put proper assumptions that when you are modeling, we only pick data from the petrol stations that are in the district, hoping that if fuel is bought in that district, is consumed within the district. It becomes a modeling assumption. Because there is also others, as you do, but also the others who are buying from other districts, but they are operating through your district. You know what I'm talking about? They have bought from Kamwenge, they are there in the Greece running, looking at what, but they took fuel from what? That's why these assessments have to be very clear with proper assumptions. People to know exactly what it is, isn't it? Now, another scenario which I can give you. In Kampala here, we generate waste. And then we have been taking we're taking to Jesse, and now we're taking to Uganda, which is in the case. Isn't it? The actual method happens at the landfill, isn't it? But the tonnage you are looking out for is measured from Kampala. So are those emissions from Fiji and Wakiso or for Kampala? You have such a low scenario, isn't it? So you may be having urban centers in your district, they generate waste. But that waste again is not put into your district. Then you have another dumping area, isn't it? So how do we get that? That's why we, in mathematical modeling, we use assumptions to clarify very well, isn't it? That the emissions that you are seeing here, this is how it was computed with these assumptions. Okay? With these what? With these assumptions. Another example. If you're looking at emissions coming out of deforestation and forest degradation, assuming that there is a lot of charcoal failing. Isn't it? Now, those emissions, in most cases, we count them at the source that they are saying, but not meaning that they are mainly bad from there. Isn't it? When you make charcoal and you bring it to Kampala, isn't it? The emissions under deforestation are counted too. Where is the source coming from? Isn't it? And that's where even the ban takes place. Isn't it? And that's why the deforestation takes place. So all these assumptions are brought into play. when you are doing your mitigation assessment, to profile your emissions. Okay? To profile your emissions and say these are now the emissions coming out of mobility districts. But below it, there is proper assumptions which we counteract for in the detailed mitigation assessment report. Because the reports are not the Dccap. The reports are providing the facts. Now, when they provide the facts, we summarize that and we present it to the Dccap. There is what we call technical reports. Now you do the mitigation assessment and produce a technical mitigation assessment report. You do the CRFA, element risk and assessment, which has a component of climate analysis. It is done separate, but it also summarize what's coming up there and informs what goes into the Dccap. Okay? So this is, I think that is important. So keeping data and information is very important, but in the event that you do things and you don't have data, you don't be collecting data, then you take it as an action in the Dccap that you start collecting. Okay? Now, this one can skip. Vision 2040 alignment, this is part of the background. Next, as the questions are coming in.
I want to the targets, the national.
Okay, back.
Yes, just for this. When you talk about the Uganda's NDC, the National Determined Contribution Pool, and you're talking about that targets. And previously you were talking about the NDC. You were saying 1, 2, and 3.
Yes.
Were they NDC 1, 2, and 3?
Versions.
Yes. And I'm here wondering, these targets, the 24.7, is of which version? The final.
No, version 2.
Or version 2.
Version 2.
So meaning that under the version 3, the NDC version 3 shall have a different target.
We already have a draft target, but not yet finalized. We have a draft target of 33.35%, reduction of emission economy. That means that you get emissions from energy, transport, agriculture, other land uses, which is you have forestry, wetlands, emissions from industry, emissions from waste. Isn't it? When we reduce them absolutely, we expect to have that target met by 2030. Okay? That is an economy-wide target of the National Climate Action Plan, which is NDC 2.0 current. Yes.
Then which under those the NDC is having the one of having the greenhouse gas emission to 57 million tons of carbon equivalent. Therefore, which now the first one, the second one, like generally to get to know if it is 24.7. We are moving from which like when we talk about like how we say, how the foresters say that we are reducing forestation by this. Then in brackets from this like area of deforestation in this year to this in this year. Like being more specific, because when I said 24, from which to which.
Now, when we made a projection under business as usual, it was taking us 188 or 82 by 2030. Now, for us to increase our commitment is to go and reduce emissions projected in 2030, about 100 something. Want to reduce them by 70%.
You are reducing on the project.
Projected exactly. Because the plan is going up to 25. No, the reduction is on the projected. Because the project, this is a plan which you want to implement between now that plan between 2022 up to 2030. Isn't it? Then you make a mathematical modeling of emissions across all the sector. Maybe from 2, if our base year is 2015, and assume that our emissions were 2, isn't it? Metric tons, and if you make it to become 4 metric tons, isn't it? By 2030, isn't it? And therefore you propose actions that you want to do to ensure that what you have projected under business as usual can contribute to emission reduction. Now, if you implement these interventions that are reducing emissions, how much of emission would you have avoided? Now, assuming that you can avoid it 2. Remember, from a baseline of 2 to projection of 4, isn't it? Pardon?
I'm saying you might reduce you might try to reduce the projected because it's already high to go back to the baseline. Is it that possible?
Okay.
Thank you. According to how you explained and I inquired it, saying for by 2015, we are meeting 97 million tons.
Exactly.
Then from that time, from that baseline, we assume that if everything stays
As it is.
we take no action. By 2030, we are at 180. So now, what is our target? We want to stay business as usual. No. Now we are proposing actions, and we are assuming that these actions, once implemented, should reduce the expected 188
Projected one, yes.
by 24%. And when I tried to compute it, we shall have avoided 44.
44
It brings us
million tons now in tons.
yeah.
Bringing you
It brings us about 140 from the 97 of 20. It's an achievement, much as they increased, but you have what's
that is it. We shall have increased the emission, but reduced
the lower rate.
at the lower rate. Yes.
Yes, because there is what we call net zero, meaning that what you have projected, and when you implement all the interventions, you have not acted. But us being at the end of this, we know that we shall
Reduce the tons.
be adding emissions, but we are taking actions in that part to reduce. That's what it means. No. What I'm about to say, in our operations, there will be emissions. Isn't it? There will be emissions. But we are going to take the required effort to reduce this emission, but not saying net zero, because we don't have the required capacity for the net zero and we are still developing. Isn't it? Meaning that's why we don't encourage the people to say that we are going to do net zero. Isn't it? We are not going to do that, though it is the global direction, but you look into your national circumstances, because nationally determine the contribution. Because if you want to go net zero, it means that you must have super technology, which you don't have, yes, and you must have qualified financial resources to do that. So we are saying that we are willing to reduce our projected, but we shall not do net zero. That's why our emission would have 100%. Would be our target from the projected, but now we say that we can only reduce by 24.7%. That's what it is. And it's the same thing that when you do your emissions in the district from the sources, the same story, isn't it? They say our emissions are going to be like this. But as a district, we are going to take these measures which can help us reduce those projected emissions by this percentage. If you want to reduce all of them which projected, that means that You are comfortable, you have the bad resources, you have the technology, and you have the know-how. That's what it means. You look into your circumstances. I mean, it's the development, how you see development. Okay? So that is the logic behind the NDCs.
I think it is a great deal of our accelerating, decelerating, something like that. So it's increasing, but actually we are reducing what it could have. But also for LDCs, of course, given that we are developing the emissions can only increase. But actually, when you look at the ones for developed countries, they actually have potential of achieving this. Because they are heavily emitting. So once they prove their technology to find out that they can even go up this. That's why sometimes they say reduce back to the 19-something level.
1990s.
Yes, because for them they are, but for us as services can only go upwards, but in when we manage our how we are doing business, then we will not be at the rate of business. But overall, again, globally, because others are actually reducing faster than us, overall it becomes a reduction.
It can be carbon neutral, net zero, or low carbon. Either choose these scenarios. Let it say. Neutral means that what you emit is equivalent from what you produce. That is being carbon neutral. What we emit in our development processes. Is that it? Now, when I talk about development processes, I'm talking about even that person who is connected. I'm talking about someone who is doing the work. We are looking at the development processes. Now, what we emit as a country is equivalent to what we produce. Carbon neutral. Now, the net zero is actually a higher ambition. That what actually we are reducing is much more far beyond from what your emission baselines are. So we are moving in the negative. Yeah, in terms of reduction. Now, low carbon is what we subscribe to as well. Because we know we are still developing, and the fact is that our development processes will be into some bit of emissions. That's why I say like low carbon. Now, when we develop with some bits of emission, we are taking responsive measures to help us reduce those emissions. Isn't it? So that's what we subscribe to. When you watch those our climate action plan, we are talking about low carbon. And this one is speaking, for example, if your Dccap vision is carbon neutral, we say this yes, but we are going to be going to neutralize. Isn't it? If your Dccap is net zero as your vision, then the net zero that is in terms of emission, then you are going to demonstrate actions that are going to do to ensure that you work towards reducing emission below your baseline. That's what it means, isn't it? But if you say that it is low carbon, it means that you are going to have some emissions as the government is going to. But doing several measures to ensure that you reduce from what? This emission. That's what it means. Those are scenarios that we're going to know. But all this information is what gets goes our NDCs, and it's something that we want to bring at this level in terms of now. At this rate, you may not take all these mitigation sectors in terms of model. You only identify those of which are key to you, isn't it? Okay? The one that might be key to you in terms of your operation. If you have livestock, work out an arrangement. If there is deforestation, work out an arrangement. Isn't it? If there is waste, work out an arrangement. Energy, that's why I'm giving you that scenario. Energy. Are you being able to identify the energy data within your district? Maybe at this level, you have not been working that, it's not your responsibility, isn't it? Therefore, we don't have the data. But would you, are you willing to take on this? Isn't it? So those are things that you have to look into to ensure that we do proper things. Next. Yes, a Dccap, that's why I said a Dccap is informed by scientific and socioeconomic what? Assessment. Because you might have these reports. That's why I said that you do adaptation assessment, you do mitigation assessment, you do gender and capacity needs what? Assessment. Those are the basis which informs what going to do. Okay?
Thank you very much. We have it there. Those are. Okay. Growing. And we had a survey as a country, and as our target, protected. We find a situation where was like when we about the economy so that we can have something like maybe might fall. Don't we find a situation where Uganda might be affected that the universe?
No, we don't find a situation. We already are affected.
How people are affected by the local
Emissions.
emissions. How do we need to know how capture it?
If you are affected by the global emission, how do you capture it? Now, this is simple. That's why when you do an adaptation assessment, it does not mean that all the orders of climate change have been coming from this. No, Uganda. That's why we start by doing projected climate in terms of parameters that you have to use. Maybe rainfall, maybe temperature, humidity, maybe so many things. But does not mean that the information that you are using is always specific to your district. But we want to see how does that global effect affect you as a district and how is it related to you as a district. That's why when we are doing the emission list, or when we are doing the what we call the climate analysis, we also use scenarios. The associated scenarios. Those are arguments from RCPs to SSP. We are looking at the global versus what the society is associated with. And then you'll be able to calculate the data and then you make the projections. So what we're trying to say, when you are doing easy kind of like analysis, you use also global data. Okay? And information to help you calibrate and also help you make projections. Because you're looking at how I'm going to be impacted, but not that which is impacting you, is actually coming from what? From your area specific. Okay? So I think that will be very important. Isaac, you have come? Okay. I've been talking about your part, but let's continue.
Commissioner, I think that's part of what is saying. I think the other interesting part also, especially now for the districts to be aware that, so there are countries that, developed countries especially, that have very high emissions. They have the resources to actually reduce the emissions, but by nature of their economies, they cannot. For example, I may want to sink that carbon somewhere, but I am so developed, or I'm like Dubai, for example, in the desert, I cannot plant trees. In as much as I have the resources. So there is also that mechanism where developed countries and us, the least developed countries, work out arrangements where I have the money, but I can't implement those actions where I am. But I can work with Uganda, which has the ability to implement those actions, but doesn't have the resources. And so the importance of also having these plans is that in as much as you may not be having the resources as a district, but if in your plan you've already demonstrated how the impact that climate change is causing, then at national level, there are actually these resources that come. And then the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Water and Environment are doing prioritization and saying, okay, if we have climate change adaptation resources coming to Uganda, which are the key districts, for example, that we need to make interventions in. And so that's how we will see that some of those programs end up in districts. But it would help you as a district if you actually have a very good Dccap, because then it demonstrates clearly what needs to be done in as much as you don't have the resources.
In simple terms, it is your commitment now as a district. That this we can do, this is the problem this we can do. Okay? So this, I think we have talked about this, but I want to just go into this one. That while doing the Dcaps, in all these assessments and adaptation mitigation, inclusivity and participation is very key. It's very what? It's very key. Inclusivity and participation is very key. We should stop the habits of thinking that we are planning for people and we don't know what they want. Isn't it? Because all what you need, for example, when it comes to one, confirmation of the science versus what is happening in the ground and what can be done. Isn't it? You can run the models, isn't it? And you see that, okay, the drought is much in sub-county X, isn't it? Flooding is much in sub-county X, but you have to go and confirm with the community whether what you think is actually what is true, isn't it? Then you propose the interventions. That these are interventions that are being proposed. Then are those interventions in line with what the community would desire? Isn't it? Because they also have social implication, isn't it? You may propose a good intervention, but in the society, by their social norms, they don't do those things that you are proposing to them, despite being good. Isn't it? So that's what we call the social inclusion. It's very, very important. Now, and I repeat, the Dccap is informed by scientific and geographical assessment. So don't do your science that here, since being steep slope, likelihood that's going to be landslide, isn't it? But you may find when the rock is actually, when the mountain is rocky. I'm talking about landslide, we're talking about borders. Isn't it? So reaching ground associated with people. And they can also tell you what they have been doing because climate does not start at they have been doing certain things to adapt, isn't it? Could you pick out elements that you can advise? Isn't it? And be part of your Dccap, isn't it? They have been doing certain things. Then you also ask them a question that what would you do better if you had the resources? They can tell you if they had the money, we would have done ABC. That means that is what they like. They would have done it, but they don't have the mechanism, isn't it? These are things that you have to be married to the science and they do a good Dccap. So the rest, I think I've talked about them, but I want to emphasize this on this slide. Next. So, while we are doing the Dccap, this seeming to speak about the structure. There are things that you do in the preliminary pages. The teacher, we expect your Dccap to have a forward. This forward, because the Dccap has to be approved, remember, and you submit the department. That's what I it. Now, the way you have been adopting this other local government strategies and plans is the same one to approve the Dccap, isn't it? There is a council, isn't it? Which approves this thing, not so. So the council must approve the Dccap in simple terms. Because the technical people are part of this, are part of the council, isn't it? But approval is by the council. So if you have a Dccap, you expect that it should have a forward, and this forward is signed by the chairperson. It should have an acknowledgement, which is signed by the chief administrative officer, who's the technical lead. Isn't it? Then these are other things. They are table of content, figures, abbreviation, executive summary, isn't it? But we know what put in the executive summary, we have elaborated in what? In the actual guideline, because it should be able to summarize the risk, it should be able to summarize the emissions coming out of the it should be able to summarize the capacity risk, can do one or maximum two credits. That's the executive summary. Should be able to talk about the finance that will buy, and how the condition is going to be. That will be the executive summary. We are going to put in the draft Dccap, which information are we looking out for in the executive summary? That all of you, when you are doing differently, at least what is required to not miss it out, isn't it? So that's what the guidance are providing. Then number two, I want to talk about this. That the adaptation section becomes section number 2, isn't it? Of your Dccap. And this is good in terms of elaborating on employment analysis, observed and projected, and this can be presented in summary, because you never have a detailed report, isn't it? But here, you are summarizing, isn't it? In the Dccap itself, you have what we call an adaptation assessment report, which gives you alignment, projections, observed, risk, identified, hazards, vulnerability, etc. But in the Dccap, we are only looking at but here you have to summarize how temperatures are going to be now and in the future, how rainfall is going to be, give us the hazard exposure index, isn't it? Those are values, isn't it? Overall, you give us the sensitivity index of the districts. Overall, you give us the adaptive capacity of the district, and you give us the vulnerability index of the district, and just a summary of districts disaggregated, because it is simple logic. If I go and I compute hazard exposure index of sub-county 1, isn't it? The sensitivity index of sub-county 1, the adaptive capacity index of sub-county 1, and I determine the vulnerability of that particular sub-county, and I do the same for all the sub-counties and the county councils, isn't it? So, for me to get the hazard exposure index of the entire district is an average of districts. Not so. Yeah? For me to get the sensitivity index of the entire district, I get the sensitivity index of all the local governments, isn't it? And I get its average. For me to get adaptive capacity index, I get all the adaptive capacity indices of all local government, then I get the overall for the district, like that. So that's what we summarize it. And present it, then we come up with the strategies to implement that when they are also prioritized. Number 3 is about the mitigation, which I've talked about. I've been talking about how you do emissions, but this is going to be elaborated by ISA. Isn't it? ISA will elaborate this because he manages the key inventory for the department, but we'll elaborate how we do this. And then number 4 is the delivery mechanism where the cap. So under this component, we are talking about the capacity gaps, the needs, the gender analysis, and responsive actions for that, and the money required, and the M&E. Now, this one here is your history of the district, the model you have, where you are located, isn't it? The population, because it is key information that is needed in each and every report speaking about the district, the economic activities in the districts. But remember that also that information is actually was already used when they are doing this detailed assessment, isn't it? But in any report, somebody wants to say the geographic and the demographic characteristics of the district. Isn't it? How many people are there? What about this economic information? It should deal with the soil, the methodology and approaches of this report. This what? This Dccap. So this is what we get in the detail of what? Of the guidance itself. Isn't it? That when you go to introduction, you go at information, the location, the soils, the demography. Isn't it? That is what you capture. So, and it is giving you like the structure, isn't it? What you provide under each of these sections. But remember, this one, and this one For them, they are informed by those detailed assessments, isn't it? That you do prior to putting the Dccap together. Next. I will skip this one. It is talk about the pillars. Now, preparation, this is important. How do we start the Dccap process? How do we start it? For example, are we at zero completely? Of course, the answer is no, we're not at zero. Isn't it fair? We are not at zero. We may not have the Dccap, but we're not at zero for what is required. Isn't it? Because where we start, if you have known what to do, you have to do what we call the preparation. Now, in the preparation, expect, madam, that you are determined that you're going to do a Dccap. Isn't it? The willingness, and there is a sponsor. Either can be the district self or the sponsor, IUCA, or any. So what you need to do is getting ready and identifying the stakeholders. Now, stakeholders identified depending on the relevance. Because what do we need in this one? Maybe we shall need data. Isn't it? If we need data, which kind of data do we need and who has this data? Isn't it? We need data on fisheries. Fisheries person is important, isn't it? We need data on climate. Do we have weather stations here? Do we have data? How do we data on this one? We need data in this direction. Isn't it? Do we need data on microscope? Do we need data? All the forms of data that we are going to use. You map people who are the biggest one to look at that. You need sense. And then you create what you call a working committee. This is not for CAP. This is for you proposing the CAP. Isn't it? That there is this working committee because we have known what to happen. Isn't it? Under adaptation assessment, we need A, B, C, D. Isn't it? So these are the nature of the people that will be needed. Isn't it? Who may have or may not have the data, but you need them. Isn't it? Under mitigation, this is what we need to do. So that's about getting started. Like you identify the data, you identify the stakeholders. Now you get the data. For example, you do the CRVA, you do the inventory, capacity assessment, gender. Now you identify the intervention based on that and M&E. But this one is the one which I'm not talking about. You need to get prepared, get started. Isn't it? Because at this level, you would also have known the terms of reference, isn't it? Yeah? That this is what you want to do. Then who should come with the tech, isn't it? If we need data on the demography, who's going to give us that data? Do we have it? Now, when you map the available data, it is the starting point that this data is required, we have it. This is required, we don't have it. Isn't it? It is important, but we don't have it. We don't have it. So how do we get this data? So that's what we call the planning, isn't it? So that is really very, very key. The rest we have been talking about them, the assessments that you do, the CRVA, which also has climate analysis, but this will help you to identify the hazards, the sensitivity, adaptive capacity, and the vulnerabilities. Okay? In all the local governments, then you aggregate that information to give the district level. Here is about the inventory of greenhouse gases, capacity assessment, and gender. These assessments are the ones that inform the information which goes into the Dccap. Okay. Next. Now, like step number one, getting started, there's tasks. That will be found in the guidelines. There are tasks. For example, I may not go in all these tasks, but now, for example, getting started, there's orientation. Engage political and technical leaders, initiate the Dccap process via environment natural resources office. Isn't it? You need to engage the political leaders and the technical leaders that we are going to do the Dccap. This is what is required to be done. Isn't it? Then task number two, from the Dccap task force, include a technical team or staff. If you don't have, get a consultant or academics with climate knowledge, somebody who has some bit of climate knowledge. Depending, if you have all these technicalities, do it by yourself. no problem, isn't it? After all, the guidelines are there. Okay? If you don't have, you may need to get a consultant, etc. So it can be either way. Isn't it? It can be either way. So identify who's going to do, then that's number 3. You get planning, agree on the terms of references, the work plan, identify data gaps and the barriers. Isn't it? What you have and what you don't have, but relevant to the task that you're going to do. That's what it means. Now, step number 2 on the stakeholders is to map all the relevant stakeholders. Please stop mapping in all the districts, isn't it? You may be having people, some districts people have universities, isn't it? You may have researchers already there that are going to contribute to this, isn't it? Map all stakeholders. But key stakeholders, don't forget the communities are key stakeholders, but they can be institutions, individuals, and they need to understand their roles and responsibility. If we map you in production and we say that we need data on the livestock operation, and the feeding characteristics, you must tell me what you need from me, isn't it? Okay? Tell me what you need, or tell the district engineer what you need from them, isn't it? Tell me, map them and tell them their roles and responsibility, isn't it? So it helps in the process. Capacity enhancement, bring in external experts, and this is where we come in. Okay? That as a department, we can continuously guide districts on shaping this, but there are also other people of capacity beyond the department who can support, isn't it? So bring them, and then keep include with experience is the RDC, the local council leaders, the CAL, department heads, sub-county leaders, CSO, private sector, and academia. They are very key in this process. Because remember, when you're doing the CRVA, you do it at the sub-county level, isn't it? Because even the sub-counties, they should know how climate change is impacting them and contribute to what they can do to respond to it, isn't it? So engage all of these categories. Next. Now, module 2 is on climate change risk and vulnerability. When you go into the guidelines, it will tell you what are the procedures and the processes and the tools that you can use to do climate risk and vulnerability assessment. So that is also a module in the guideline, isn't it? We are providing modules in the guideline. So the module in the guideline, it tells you how we compute vulnerability indices as a function of exposure, sensitivity, adaptive capacity, and how do we do this? Okay? That module tells you that. Okay? And what tools can we use? So that's what that module is telling you. But recall that this one is the key engine to fit into the adaptation component, isn't it? Okay? Because this is where the problems are identified. So in that module, we are looking at the amount and the rate of climate change experienced determined by location and climate hazard like a drought, etc. Isn't it? That is exposure. But I'm telling you that this is done at the lower government. You have a district, you have sub-county, you have town council, isn't it? So you have to do each of these for all those local governments and then you aggregate it to get the district picture. Okay? For example, why that information is important to be done that way? If somebody comes to your district and asks you, which of these local governments is most vulnerable? Isn't it? Somebody can come to your district and ask you, which of these sub-counties is the most vulnerable? So if you only drive a district vulnerability, isn't it? And you don't disaggregate by local government, again, it will affect how you implement and how you make decisions. Because whereas this sub-county is more exposed to flooding, isn't it? It presents these vulnerabilities. So if somebody is looking at the sub-county is more exposed to drought, you can easily tell from that report. Isn't it? But if also you want to find out which of these sub-counties is most stressed by water, and how and then you use this report to make decision. That's how that information is done up that level. Isn't it? And aggregated upwards to give the picture of what for the districts. So it is important that the same for adaptive capacity. Now, when you have all these three in the local government, you consolidate it upwards to give a district picture. But again, when you go back to the planning, then you can easily tell that this one is more exposed, this one is more sensitive, and sensitivity to what? Isn't it? You can all tell in that one. So that information is really very important. And also when you are doing the climate analysis, it is not annual. You also do seasonal analysis. Seasonal analysis is what impacts the community, isn't it? They are not interested in your projected up to 2050, isn't it? For them, they want to see how a season is going to be changing. Because they are like on what? On seasons. Whereas you as planners are doing long-term what? Long-term planning. But what impacts the community is the seasonalities. Whether the temperature is going to increase and what is it that you can do, isn't it? Whether rainfall is going to increase and what is it that you can do. For them, their interest is in the seasonalities. So when you're running this model, then you run the annual projected and seasonal projected and present them as trends and spatial analysis. Maps and graphs. That's what it means. Because a common person can look at a map and explain, isn't it? That when you see this color, it shows that it's going to be increasing. So if you find yourself count in that category, they can link up with it. Now, beyond that, there are those who are interested in the detail, those are the people that are interested in the graphs and what isn't it? While the others are interested in the spatial analysis, like in the maps. So that's what's coming out of that. Next. So just back, when you do this, you can also go ahead and do the geospatial. Isn't it? In terms of hazard exposure. Remember, we have done climate analysis, we have done the hazard and risk assessment, and determine the vulnerability, isn't it? Then you can come to the map of the district and try to tabulate all of this into the geospatial. You also present them in that categorization. Okay? But all of that information, you don't pick it because it's a big report, you don't pick that report in the Dccap, but you summarize it and you put into the Dccap, but we make reference to that report. Okay? If somebody is in the detail. Next. This one I'm skipping because it's going to be handled here. This is about the mitigation, isn't it? The other is about the mitigation. Now, capacity needs, let me go to this component 3. Component number 2 I've left it because it's going to handle it, isn't it? Now, capacity, in this one, we said capacity assessment. I already told you that you assess the environment. You have adequate policy frameworks, isn't it? To enable you adaptation and mitigation. So it is illegal, law, policies, plans, strategies, etc. is what you assess. Are they available? If they are not available, then it makes them an action in the Dccap, isn't it? Okay? Whatever is not available, and you think it is important to be available to enable people to adaptation and mitigation, it becomes an action, isn't it? That you do this in the Dccap, as simple as that. Next is about the institutional capacity. Now this one is looking at organizational structure, the staff requirements, the financial and the tools for implementing climate actions. Assuming there was no, Madam, we talk about climate disaster scheme tools. If somebody finds that these tools are not there, whenever you do what comments to so it means it is a capacity, and therefore to make it an action now you recommend it to the Dccap. Because the assessment has shown that this is missing and it's important, isn't it? Oh, the tools are there, but you as people are not able to implement them or use them. Then we put an action on the training of the application of Dccap, climate disasters reduction tools, isn't it? So it becomes a training component in the Dccap. So when we get the money, we implement it, we are implementing the Dccap. Does it make sense? So it is like that. Then there is that is in the video. Next, gender is really the purpose. You collect the data, gender. Now, I'm not a gender specialist. Let me first put a disclaimer. Now, when the people go to collect the data, they think they talk about man and woman. That is gender. But those who are in community services, it is included that. Isn't it? For example, if you're going to do assessment, let me just give an example. There is something who does that. When you go to the education assessment, most of the emissions are associated with the main characteristics. That's what people are saying, isn't it? Yeah? Because they say, okay, who is doing the Chaco Valley? Who is doing this open road? Then who is doing this and this? Let's give you an example. Yeah? But now, when you go to adaptation, they say those who are only 15 years, again, are the most poor who are suffering. Then how are they suffering? Isn't it? So, what I want to do here is that we need to get together experts. What are these climate change impacts and mitigation? How are they related to gender in terms of equity and equality? It is beyond about the sex, isn't it? How are the children impacted? Do we have specific measures to address the children's concerns in the what? The Dccap, as an example, isn't it? What about the people with disabilities? Isn't it? What about the youth? So it is really interesting because you find a partner who's interested in implementing climate change intervention in your district, catching the youth. And that's how they are coming, isn't it? Catching the youth. What is it that you have for the youth for climate change, isn't it? So it is that analysis that can help us to bring out this. And then the policy alignment is also very important. Next. Module 3 is about identifying and prioritizing climate change options. Now, let me speak slowly over this one. One is the review of the development goal. Now, in your DDPs, that is, you have already made a commitment for 5 years, isn't it? What is it that these climate analysis says that have been done? How are they connected to what it is? Okay, in terms of the intervention. So it means that an intervention, which is the DDP, but also this CRVS and is also recommending it, is a good intervention to be implemented. Because we are very committed to do it, isn't it? But even this IFI is also what? Coming through. So we're looking at the alignment, because at the end of the day, there is the way how this money is going to be trickled down. Isn't it? So that alignment is really very important. Now, when you identify the strategies, here I need your attention. In the DDP reports of adaptation, mitigation, gender and capacity needs, you are going to come up with so many interventions proposed, isn't it? But not all those interventions, you can put them in your name, because the Dccap has them to implement. So you're talking about prioritizing for the purpose, isn't it? You may have so many interventions identified in the CRVA, identified under mitigation, isn't it? Or gender and capacity needs, but not all of them that are going to bring them and put in the Dccap. Because the Dccap has an implementation time frame, isn't it? You put many which are not going to implement, assessment comes, you are not implemented, you have failed. That's what it means. So we need to prioritize what are we putting, isn't it? In our Dccap, depending on the implementation time frame, it's not just getting each and everything that you have in assessment, which might be very good, but look at the aspect of implementation, isn't it? Because the Dccap has an implementation area. What is it that you can do in the forestry in 10 years, for example, isn't it? What is it that you can do in the fisheries in 10 years? So don't just pick each and everything and look to the Dccap, because assessment report is fishery engagement, isn't it? Here is the prioritization. But while prioritizing and adaptation, we use what we call a multi-criteria analysis. The tool is available. Okay? So a multi-criteria analysis just do 3 things. Or 4. One is the intervention proposed responding to climate change problem. Isn't it? So if you propose that intervention, to which climate change problem is it responding? Don't put measures that are not responding to the problem which you have identified. Isn't it? The measures that are not responding to the problem are not good measures. Isn't it? So any measure or intervention you have identified leads to which climate hazard is it addressing? Is it addressing drought? Is it addressing flooding? That is number one. Then number two, you are looking at the effectiveness of implementing that measure. That if we have it, shall we be able to implement it? Isn't it? Yeah? Is there money? Does it contribute to gender equality? Is it feasible? And is it environmentally sound? Environmentally sound, what I mean here, I can go on with this man. Environmentally sound, what I mean here is that we can propose measures for adaptation, but in actual senses, they just increasing the money. You are adapting, but you are increasing the progress. Isn't it? So is that measure environmentally sound? That if when you implement it, it is not deliberate. Can I give an example? Yeah? Okay. People may be lacking water, and they have a swamp nearby. And when you put a measure that people just go to the swamp and cultivate, for example. Just give an example. Indeed, it is helping them to adapt because while they are going to the swamp, they don't have the water. They are going where water is. But in the long term, they are going to degrade that swamp and then increase the value of the problem in the future. Isn't it? So that one will not be a viable adaptation measure in terms of effectiveness and environmental soundness. But again, you can think of measures which can help them utilize that with and sustain it. That's what I'm going to say. And all these measures are subjected to those ones. Is it important in terms of which hazard is it responding to? Isn't it? We have identified. Is it effective? Is it feasible? Is it cost effective? So, for example, now in terms of the cost, there's a Dccap which I saw, and somebody said that they want to do an hydropower station or plant. B. So it is a good measure. The sound representative, but shall you get the money to do it? And you have capacity. I'm mandated to do it. That is all the good measures in our Dccaps that we are mandated to do. Because if you put things, though they are good, but you are not mandated to do them, and therefore you never implement them, then the Dccap will never be made. That's what it means. We are only putting measures that falls within our jurisdiction of implementation as a district. That's what it's called a district permanent action plan. Isn't it? Don't put airport because we're not going to do the airport as a district. It will be there, it's a very good, isn't it? But we're not going to implement it because the implementation of the Dccap is you as a district. Isn't it? We only put measures that do that. We can implement, we have money to do it. If we don't have money, we can bring those measures which we have money to implement and we source for resources. But the measures we don't have mandate to implement, don't put them, even if they sound good. Isn't it? We don't put them because it will show that we're not implementing our Dccap. Yet we are putting good things back outside our mandate of it. Okay? So I think we need to get this good. There could be within our mandate of implementation, or we see that there is no partner who is willing to give us resource money. Isn't it? You can put a measure to be implemented, you have the money to implement it, you don't have money, but there is willing partner who can bring money. That one is good, okay, isn't it? Because it will help resource mobilization. But the measures that are outside your mandate as a district, really and we don't put them because they will sound good, isn't it? But you don't have the mandate to implement them, and at the end of the day, when somebody comes and says you Dccap, you don't have to implement them. And I'm not going to say that it is not us to implement, it is the other institution. This is your Dccap. Okay? So that's how the macroterial analysis becomes handy. That we have identified so many things, but we have to subject them to the material analysis in terms of feasibility, environmental soundness, effectiveness, issues of gender. By the time we finish that one single activity, at least you are comfortable that it is good to go. And the tools are available, okay? I think this one I can skip. This one is about the money. Because where do we get the money to implement our Dcaps? The first line of implementing the Dcap is our budget. Don't even first think about other supporters who are coming. Isn't it? Our budget. Number two is the development partners. Isn't it? There are those who can come and implement, and they are there who are looking for the very discipline support to the Dcap. Isn't it? They are there. Number three is our local partners, like the civil society, the CBOs, and the private sector. So when we are trying to think about these activities, we also think about, do we have the money? Yes or no? But if we put it, do we have a partner who can come and support? Isn't it? So all these things help you to define how we structure a Dcap in terms of the interventions. Isn't it? Because look at also the willingness for partners to come and support you with that, isn't it? It can be private sector, social organization, can be even individual, isn't it? Or can be NGOs, or can be the companies that you have in your district, who have the social corporate responsibilities, or from our line budget. All these can be important, but also you can be looking at the global emerging financing, the Dccap, which is an operational fund. Though it takes long, but also from what we have been doing, for example, in Karungu district, we have already have a concept known as Karungu, Potibale, Kabo, and Padel. And why you already developed what called the CRP. And then adaptation, then we reached the concept note, and the adaptation fund that after that concept note was 24,000 USD, covered that into capital. Okay, and we submitted these CRPS climate risk assessment in this year for to adaptation plan to confirm that this is really a builder. And they are looking at the implementation of the problem versus what they want. Okay, so it helps. We are not doing it just for yourself, but also doing it for the partners. That's what I'm communicating. Because when they find you there, it is easier for them to come in because you know what you want. In simple terms, you know your problem and you know what you want. And this Dcap, no single institution can implement it and finish it with their resources. People just come in and say, okay, where is your niche? Production. This is what we want to do in production. Under climate change. Where do you fit in this one? Because it can be either contributing to what you are going to do or implementing this in totality if you are not having resources. So when we are doing the exploitation and costing, that is what you have to put into consideration. But in the bigger guidelines, we have this elaborated, but this is just a presentation, just providing needs, isn't it? So outside government resources, we also think about how we can attract other partners. But the element that you think that you never and ever attract money, don't put, isn't it? But where you have this can bring a partner, this is that will bring a partner, those are the reports, isn't it? Next. So this is just summarizing the material analysis and how we weight it, isn't it? But we have a bigger tool which can help you to subject each and every adaptation intervention proposed under all sectors. You subject it to all these things. Then at the end of the day, means that those that are 8 and above, they are good to go. Everything which is below average, then you first put a question mark and then you try to think about it. Because it is you who assess this. So we have a criteria that we use to do that criteria analysis. Next. CRVA. Now, this is when you build a CRVA, we arrange them in order of importance, isn't it? Because when you do the survey, we also put some bit of scales. Now we are talking about the bigger analytical system, okay? And I said that the survey are done by all, you do them in all government, and you aggregate them upwards to get national district picture, okay? You undertake them in all local governments. All this directly you can be able to tell you that actually this sub-county is more worse than this other sub-county. Isn't it? Because the resources are not all there to implement in all of them. Isn't it? So you can start with the one which are worse. Isn't it? So now what we do here in our vulnerability assessment, anything which is the 80% and above, the vulnerability is very high. Isn't it? These are just ranges. Anything which is in this category, the vulnerability is high. Then we have something to do with moderate, have something to do with the low vulnerability and very low vulnerability. Isn't it? But a combination of these vulnerabilities, remember, we would have computed the hazard exposure, the sensitivity, adaptive capacity to determine the vulnerability. Isn't it? So, and this is how it is presented. Next, the M and the E. So I'm using all this time because when this gentleman comes, we only focus on mitigation. Because this other part applies other sections. Now the M and the E, it is very key that the indicators that you propose there are very smart. Linking objective indicator is very important. Understanding the baseline is very key, and the reporting cycle. For all those interventions that we propose, whether adaptation or mitigation, this is the guiding principle, isn't it? That you have a clear intervention, and you can be easy track it through smart indicator. The indicator is linked to the objective and means of verification, frequency. Then the baseline is very clear. If you want to do tree planting, for example, to increase the acreage of tree planting, from what to what? Isn't it? If you identify a measure of increasing access to water, for example, in the district, from what to what? What are you going to do for access to water? Isn't it? If you want to increase on the number of farmers practicing aquatic fishing, from what baseline to what baseline? Because this will help to track the progress of the implementation of what? The Dccap. Okay? So these are really very, very important to help in determination. So this is what it means. So indicators and baseline implementation period of the Dccap, isn't it here? If it is running between 2026 up to 2035, we should be very clear. And therefore, what we want to do in the first year, second year, ninth year, isn't it? Then tracking progress, the KPI, key performance indicators, and the reporting. So all this is, there is a full module of how you can do this when you're doing your data. So that's why we put them in two modules. Module 1, module 2 on adaptation, module 3, on capacity. Module 4 what? Now, this is the thing. Next. We're just explaining briefly. Then the key roles and responsibilities, just to, but it can go beyond this one. It can go beyond this one. The Ministry of the Environment will just give you technical and oversight. When we're doing this, if you request, because it is not our responsibility, it's your responsibility. Our responsibility is to demand where the need. But also can give oversight on how we're doing, because it's provided technical guidance. Number 2 is the District Natural Resources Officer. This is where the Dccap belongs. All the assessments, all the analysis, all the data used, and when you have the Dccap, they are the custodian and they are the coordinator. That's why I say, don't lose out of this because you have updated that Dccap. And if you have lost everything, where is the starting point, isn't it? But also recall I told you, in the areas where you think that you don't have data, but it is so sequential to inform the Dccap, then those areas will come to this and then the action areas. In the first Dccap, you have to start collecting that data. Maybe the rest of them. Okay, so this one is very important. The communities are very key. The core team that you have put in place, let it here. The core team to coordinate this process, because you are the chief coordinator, but you have to get a team to support you. That is also, this is very important. And then the development partners. Don't shy away to call the partners who are implementing emergency activities, isn't it? In your district, because they can contribute to what you think that you will not be able to implement. Isn't it? Because they can share with you in our plans for your district, this is what we have. Isn't it? So their alignment in what we are doing is actually very important, because at the end of the day, they should be accountable for you. What they are doing during this. So call these partners. We don't lose them out. They can contribute to this. So next, resource mobilization. This we have talked about it. I don't want to repeat. There are so many, starting from the domestic, from the local government budget, the domestic budget, our national budget. That's what we are doing. The certificate of compliance. What we talk about that. Okay. It also can be a source of implementing. There's GCF, Green Climate Fund, Adaptation Fund, there's JEF, there's development partners and others. So when you think about who's going to run this, don't get observed to always see your budget as it is. Isn't it? After all, this is a plan, but what is compelling you? Remember, this is a plan. Isn't it? So in this plan, you pick out what you put in there. DCP is now the DCP is becoming the national issue or the local issue. Isn't it? And from it, you get the annual plan. Isn't it? So don't get master the plan. The plan is big. You only expert what are going to put in 5 years and put the and expert from there and put in annual. Okay? So it should not stop you from sitting abroad. Where can you get these resources? And beyond, by the way. And beyond. Because you may be talking about information to do with awareness. And you have this social interested in awareness. Actually, there is a capacity gap. When you do it, and you need it. Anybody can come and contribute to it. Next. So that has been just summarizing. These are the modules. Module 1, when you go there, is about preparation, isn't it? How do we prepare? Isn't it? Module 2 is about the analysis. Which analysis do we require? Isn't it? We talked about these ones, but this one is going to be talked about in detail by Isaac. I have covered this, and this, isn't it? Module 3 is setting goals, identifying options, prioritizing them, and costing them. That's what you have in module, isn't it? And then the last module is on M&A and best. So, but always bring it to the Dccap. Next. This is just a presentation. With expert, what questions do you need to ask yourself? Those modules. It's not all of it, it's just a trigger. So if I go to, for example, and I get started, which is module 1, isn't it? What questions do I need to ask myself and answer myself? We are providing some bit of key pointers. What climate data is available for our district? I mean, these are certain points in module 1, isn't it? Okay, who are all the stakeholders that need to be, okay, who are the stakeholders that need to be involved? Then you ask yourself, that is great. Then, what capacity do we have and what gaps do we exist? What capacity do we have to do the Dccap? And what gaps are existing? Just like an example, this is how these modules are being done. It's like asking yourself, but when you ask yourself, is the other thing that you have to do in simple terms. Here is asking yourself, but answering yourself is the other thing you have to do now. Does it make sense? So, for example, under data analysis, what are our main climate hazards? Isn't it here? In the districts, you can identify all of them. Isn't it here? Because you want to find out data, you're going to do analysis. Isn't it? What are climate main hazards? Which sectors and communities are most affected? You ask yourself, but you don't know. Isn't it here? Then, what are the GHG hotspots in our district? So then those questions then think about which type of data you want to value for running this analysis. Isn't it? Then when you go to planning and actioning, implementation, monitoring, so it is organized in that way in the modules. You will start with a question that you ask yourself. So when you are answering those steps, you are actually now trying to put out what is where. I hope I'm communicating. So this is what you can find in the graphic guidance. Okay. Next. This is just in the diagram. Now, I'm on the CRVA. Yeah? This is the summary of the CRVA. Yeah? The one for adaptation. You do climate analysis, observed and projected, and with that one, do the annual and seasonal analysis of the parameter of your input. That's what we call climate analysis. You do observed and projected, you do many annual and seasonal analysis, both observed and projected, and you can subject those to the parameters of your input, whether it's temperature or rainfall, etc. Now, that information fit into step number 2, which is identifying climate hazard and risk assessment, which is presented spatially, but also in the analysis. Now, when you do step number 2, you go to step number 3 of assessing vulnerability in terms of exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity. Now, these are computed indices. It means that you may need to go to the communities and get the data. Because for the exposure, you can get it dispassion. Sensitivity, you can get it dispassion halfway, but also have to go to the community and direct. How sensitive is this with your level? Adaptive capacity, you never and never get it in terms of spatialists. It is going to talk the people. What capacity you have, isn't it? What things are available, isn't it? For example, one of the questions that you could ask the adaptive capacity is about health, isn't it? Do you have a health center in your community? Isn't it? They can tell you this. Now, are you getting adequate services in that health center? Can you get it when you're using health? Isn't it? They can tell you this, and this is what used to compute the adaptive capacity. Isn't it? Now, the other question which we ask underwater, for example, do you have access to water? They can tell you yes. But now, is that water adequate for you? Isn't it? Now, the adequacy, you will never get it using your spatial. Isn't it? It is the adaptive capacity is 100% community interaction. Isn't it? Whereas sensitivity is 50 spatial, is 50 community. And the one for exposure, you can do the GIS analysis. Isn't it here? Okay? But again, you have to go to the community to confirm whether what you see scientifically is what you experience. Isn't it? That is the goal. So it helps you to do that, step number 3. Then step number 4 is assessment and appraisal of adaptation options. We talk about how do you appraise. Isn't it? You have so many adaptive options that you identify, but you are subjected to material analysis that talk about. Isn't it? And then, right, and then you are costing this. Now the costing is simple but difficult. Isn't it? Because the issue of costing is what is it that I want to do? Maybe I want to buy a pen. Let me use this one. Let's check. I want to buy a pen as an action. How many pens do I want to buy? maybe 20, isn't it? What will be the cost of the pen? One, today, isn't it? Maybe 200 shillings, isn't it? No, I multiply the cost of the pen today times 20, which I want, but I have to factor in inflation because you are planning for the future, isn't it? What is the inflation rate? Then you get that number, you multiply it by the inflation rate. Isn't it? To be able to get an estimate of that. That is how the cost is done. Okay? What you want to do, times how many times you want to do it, what is the unit cost of that one, what you want to do, isn't it here? Then we find the inflation rate because you are planning for future. Okay? That is the cost. At individual level, maybe 9 million. Example, when you go to procurement, so now, if you are going to use this thing under procurement, look what is it that you want to do? Let it clear. How many do you want to do? What is the unit cost of one? Let it clear. Then we multiply by an inflation rate, which can also be projected. So you are able to what cost. Then the rest of the math applies. That is the cost you have to calculate. Next. So this one allow you to skip it because that's analysis. That is what this one. Now let me just talk about this second last slide. Now, while doing adaptation and the uprising adaptation options, these are the questions that come to our mind, and this is what we have in the full sentence. So I want also to pay attention, most especially the district natural resources officer, because this is your docket. You have to list all the adaptation options in all sectors, maybe agriculture, water, sanitation, ecosystem, etc. So what are those strategies you want to implement? Because you have identified them in relation to and all what you have identified in this one, you are not sure that is going to help you address the problem. Isn't it? Yeah? Now, number 2 is highlighting the better adaptation and resilience measures. Now, out of that bigger list, you need to highlight the one that you have to implement within the Dccap time. Not everything. Then, number 3 is to describe the rationale of that adaptation option type. If I implement this adaptation options, it's going to help me to respond to this climate hazard. This is going to be that's the rationale. Anybody who wants to get climate financing is going to describe the rationale to your proposal problems. It's not going to happen because it business actually. So now the rationale is a linkage between the climate hazards, the intervention and improvement of the climate hazards, and how is it going to reduce conflict. That is now indicate if the adaptation measure is actually a priority of the district. Isn't it? Now it is helping you to manage because everybody is contributing. Do ABCD. Now, as a district, okay, you sit back and say, okay, is this really a measure as a district? Isn't it? Yeah? Is it a priority? Now, anything which is a priority up to the district, it is good to go to that you want it and you like it and fail to implement it, it should continue. Isn't it? Now, highlight the climate hazard that these measures you have identified is going to address. If we do solar irrigation, is that it yet? What is it that it is responding to? Is that it yet? Is it responding to drought? Isn't it yet? So it means that if I do solar irrigation, I'm responding to drought because I have continuous supply of water, even when there is no enough what? Not really. So, which hazard does the intervention addressing to? Because you may find that one hazard is actually responding to multiple what? Multiple hazards. One intervention may be responding to what? Multiple what? multiple hazards. Then that's why we talk about now the relevance. Now, subject this to this multiple analysis in terms of the adequacy, in terms of current and future climate, that is the proposed measure. Is it going to help us respond to the current and future climate? Isn't it? Those are the questions to ask yourself. Also, subject it to environmental sustainability, which I've already talked about, isn't it? Is the measure proposed going to have economic empowerment in the district? Now, you are trying to define what is a good adaptation measure. Is it going to boost people when implemented? Isn't it? In terms of economic empowerment. Okay. Another example, or the same example, if you do solar power irrigation, it's going to respond to drought, but when people are implementing it, it's likely that you're going to improve their economic status. When you keep them in the production, I'm asking the question. Isn't it? So look at these measures, because a society which is not economically empowered will go back to degradation elements. Isn't it? So that's why I said, is it going to empower the community? Is it feasible anyway? Is it implementable at the district? Isn't it? Here in Kampala and in the Malalo Sector community, isn't it? Maybe figure is not an option. I don't know, but I'm told. Isn't it? So can you propose a figure in the Malalo community? Is it feasible for them? Just give me an example. Look at the feasibility of the intervention. Where it's going to be implemented. So is it feasible? Now, cost effectiveness. Can we get money to implement it? Isn't it? Or you think about trillions of money, of which even your annual budget does not reach. Isn't it? So look at the cost effectiveness and the gender equity. Now, when you do these ones, you subject all intervention. By the time you finish all these ones, it gives you a weighting of where a certain intervention belongs. And you can able to tell that this one, when I assessed it, it is bringing me to 80%. Then it is good to go to be implemented, because you have subjected to all those criteria. Isn't it? Now indicate the score, like I've told you, and the interpretation indicate the Dccap implementation period of that measure, isn't it? And then attach a measurable indicator of each and specific measure, isn't it? The target and the indicator. So when you do that, it is what we call uprising indication. Okay? The fitness, the quality, how it's going to be implemented, isn't it? So when you take all these measures into that, by the time you finish, you are going to show that this is actually good for our district in all these dimensions. Okay? Anything which is not good in all those dimensions, then you take a double thought whether you take it on or to drop it. Isn't it? So next, what time is it? Yeah, I'm told that it's not about last time. Now, this is the last slide, isn't it? Before I thank them, take them. Now, this map here, when we are doing these guidelines, we try to map out a few districts and what they are doing. Okay? Okay? Now, the deep green here, you see this one? This, and this are the only districts that have got the Dccaps and submitted. That is Namayo, Nikwe, Tagwenda, and what? Ikamwini. If I say, I'm going to respond to that. In the format I've been presented, those are the issues that are passed. Now, where people are being confusing, what they call a Dccap. If people go and do climate risk assessment and they come up with interventions, now, what you come up as a plan is an adaptation plan. is missing mitigation. Okay? I told the Dccap should have adaptation and mitigation, and then we know adaptation and mitigation, and then that adaptation and mitigation is referred to into the analytical assessment. That is. So most of the districts have been attempting to do risk assessment and come out. Some of them are just advanced hazard map, not even risk. Is that it here? Some of them will come and say, okay, maybe this one. But OPM came here, and we know our hazard a lot, but we know what vulnerability is. Is from that hazard, we have mapped, we identify the sensitivity, that new capacity, and the vulnerability. OPM will not reach that. Okay. Okay. And we lead you to that, so that can be the proper adaptation group. So that's what I'm saying that I'm going to do like this one to neutralize the claims. Now, but also there are districts in this category. Now I cannot read. You tell me what is this one. Now government with an ongoing process, let it out. Draft. Now, there are these ones, you said the Kasese has. For us, we count it as a draft because it is not completely addressing all the components of it. You have known what Dccap now, what it takes, let it. At least me, I know what it takes, let it. So now Kasese does not have what it takes. Isn't it? But now I'm telling them this and this and this and this need to be done so that but again, we are not blaming them because this guidance was not featured before. So, but the others who are aware, what is this color? You read from there. Read. This one. I'm asking the presenters. You can't read also. Now, what is this one? This with what?
Road map.
With a road map, isn't it? Yeah? There are those who have road map. That's what we told you from natural sources. You all develop the road map. Isn't it? Yeah? Remember, getting started, isn't it? Yeah? Map this, what is available, what is missing, understand all of this, it all comes over and then develop the road map for you. This period which are maybe this one. There are some which have a road map. Then this category here.
Aware.
Now these ones here are aware about. I don't know. Now you can come to this category. You are aware. But there are others whom have never reached. They could be aware, but have not taken them. Just tell them what have been taken. Isn't it? So this is where we start. Okay. So an adaptation plan is not a Dccap. A Dccap should be comprehensive with adaptation, mitigation, and means of implementation, where you have capacity, gender, and finance. So now, if you have a plan which is all about mitigation, that one becomes a mitigation plan. If you have a plan which is all about adaptation, it becomes an adaptation plan. But a Dccap is really this. That is it. We call it plan. So, allow me to stop here and I apologize for making a lot of progress. But I think it was worth us to understand this, where I'm coming from. So these guidelines, where they have reached, that's why I call them without. These guidelines where they have reached. Any small input or big input that you provide us, we can still accommodate. More especially in the area where it's not clear. What does it mean? Because now you have the interpretation. This one is not clear. So if you find it not clear, it means that even others will not clear. Isn't it? But they are advanced. We are only waiting to process them for the permanent secretary signature and the commission. Isn't it? Then we roll them out. But by the time we come there, for you, you don't know what it is. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Commissioner, our presenter. You can please clap again.
Yes, I know you've learned a lot. And we still have an opportunity to input in the process. I don't know, this has been an interactive session. I don't know if there is anybody who has an additional. Any comments? Any need for clarity? And is your hand up? Thank you, Commissioner, for a very detailed session. I think we've learned a lot. I was just wondering if it's possible maybe to include a sample in the annex of that table that is showing how the adaptation interventions for each district are going to be maybe dealt with, like a column with the description of the intervention or action, and then maybe the timelines, the responsible entity, the monitoring indicator. Because I looked at the Bucure district action plan and it can guide the districts, and then they also don't go out from what you're trying to achieve with the guidelines. Otherwise, this is a very important document. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. So I'll first respond to that. Yeah, so can shout. So I want to that guideline out. I revoked it because somebody asked, where are you getting this? We use the Bucure and my ego. So that experience is what we're trying to do. That's why I was expecting the question. Why are you saying that these ones are hard? We have yet the guidelines are not clear. You know what I'm talking about? You get it here. So because we wanted to get with experience, let it take how to do, how to get the data, how to do it. So they will support from the mining law and the Bucure by the Iceland Penalty. They provided the resources. Now the Kitagwenda and the Kamwenge, the water for people, organizations provided the resources. We have managed to experience out of it. To do it practically, is everything. Why are we looking at this guidance? I think this one gives an advantage. So this is not written by a consultant. These are the things. We wrote it by ourselves, but I'm not saying that the fact is not important, but we gather experience from those projects to turn it into the proper guidance. So, providing that table of what looks like is something that looks like it. That's how we can present it.
Yeah, just one, I think what I wanted to add is just to emphasize the importance of getting ready. I think you also say you make it you also emphasize it a lot. But in doing that, I wanted you also to expound on the CSOs is document. Because from the experience, from what we're doing as people, is that the CSOs is a broad term that it would not for some people feel it out. But when I talk to a sort maybe starts with NGOs, the CEOs, the farmer groups, samples, religious, cultural institutions, Rotary and clubs, and the schools that are very active in climate action. So in doing that, I think the CSOs need to elaborate that the list is long rather than leaving it very good. Because sometimes might appear like they might get it down. That's one thing. And then there's second the DC poverty composition. Again, it's very important that broad-based, the emphasis on broad-based so that the district plan, the district authorities don't look at this thing as an environmental thing, but rather it is everyone has to be part of it. The health part will be there, the community development has to be part of it. So that today it is more, everyone is part of this. Eventually, the implementation becomes very easy.
Okay, I think I can also respond to that. One, we could have reported all those categories, but not CSOs maybe alone. That's why we say that math is the bonus, isn't it? And we said some from the CSO. So now, if you are mapping key stakeholders, it means that there is relevance. You can have many CSOs to this, for example. But those that are contributing to the relevance of the so you map the key stakeholders and you bring them because the CSO team maybe the district where you come from might be different from another CSO which is mapped for the district maybe where they are coming from. So what we are living at that level, what is the guideline? So we call them key stakeholders and everybody categories. Now when you go to the district, like as well bring all of this one, provided they are key in what you are going to do. Isn't it? So we couldn't elaborate by naming, go to school, go to this, go to this, go to this. No, they are very many, but map key stakeholders. But also it will also come to cooperation with the Dccap core team. Experience has it that everybody is key. But again, if you look at the core team, which has thousands of people, you will never and ever work. Isn't it? Everybody is important. But now, if you're looking at the core team, because what we're saying now, we are using experience now. A team which is dedicated, isn't it? To drive this agenda is the most ideal that we have with everybody, isn't it? So, why are you calling a core team? When you go to production, they have this advantage. They have fisheries, they have national, and they have confidential. Now, the core team is too much for them, or the one from that, but that's what we're talking about. Meaning that interact from the department can work with the rest of the department to get all what is required and then come back to the core team. But that does not mean that the core team is the one which is going to be the data. Is that the core team which is discussing how they want this to be moved, shared by the National Services Office. So meaning that the core team on the map in education, who do we do? That is it. We need to start from there. But not the entire thing. So that is, and even in the core team, you may need office of the camp also to be part of the core team. So the core team is there to depending on where that because some of us I'm using that word. Some of us come. If cow is part of the core team, maybe I can future myself to be there. But if cow is not there, then I also become back. So that's why I said that what is that core team you want to work with? It goes beyond taking. You need political services. You're going to deal with communities. You need to leave community services outside the core team. So it is up to you to map the core team depending on the relevance. But we recommend you don't make it very big because it will not be a community. It will be now everybody. Now that small team is the one which is guiding the process, identifying what is missing, what to connect with others who are not part of the core team, to bring forward what is required. So that's how it should work. By experience. Because once it is too much elaborated, again it makes the work not move. Isn't it here? Yeah. Okay, do and then do.
Yeah, thanks so much, Commissioner. I wanted to add something on the costing. Even the challenge we normally have is what constitutes that costing, the element of additionality, when the costing is climate-related interventions. Because you have an existing, maybe plan, government plan, you have the budgets, but then I'll give an example, maybe a road. You have to make a climate-proof road. But it is already an existing cost by the engineer's office. So what makes it a climate-proof road is that additional cost you have to add to the modification. Now that's what constitutes what goes into the cost for climate action. Otherwise, I see a data where somebody can have the total cost of the entire project, even of the road. But we're looking for what money are you looking for from Ministry of Finance under that code? I think 09009 and something like that. Because we're looking for that additional element, the additionality issue, costing climate change. Because you might say this road is costing $1 million per kilometer, yet the climate profit maybe is about 100,000 of the existing cost by the engineer's office. So we have to clarify how do you allocate these costs? What exactly constitutes the additional cost? Because there's already an existing cost, for instance, unless if something is totally new. Before maybe I could add that.
Okay, let me also just add a clarification. This is one question which came, was it from Mr. So, that is very good. That's why when we are doing the planning, when we are doing the costing, you have to work with the technical people. Because the level of costing, it implies that you are going to be able to. Isn't it true? Now, when you are doing the costing of the interventions that have been around, that have been implemented, not as new, in that budget column, you identify business as usual cost. Isn't it true? Business as what? Business as usual costing. That's why we're talking about that column. This is, we have been doing the odds, but now we have to carry the profit benefit. So that's the business as usual cost. Now, if you want to do an additional cost in the lens of climate change, maybe we want to supplement by irrigation. So what will be the cost of irrigation per acre? Acre, just as an example, what will be the cost of introducing drought management structures, which can be box carve-outs as opposed to these normals and the size of everything? What will be the cost? Now, when you get that cost of additionality, you have to additional cost, you have to add it onto the business as usual. Because this plan here is not for now, it's for future. Someone else gets a bigger picture. It's for future. But in the proceeding documents, you know, normally we are going to do a non-government like this much. Using the normal budget system, one and one. But we need to expand the budget system, the technology and material, we advertise about additional financing. But totally, you get the normal one because you want to do like the president. And let's go that money is going to come, business as usual versus addition. So you get that one, business as usual, you add it with expected money, isn't it? That activity, and then you calculate the kilometers that you want to undertake, do it like a smart, isn't it? What you want to take, and then you not the inflation rate. Now, there the budget comes. If they give you the normal money that you have been doing, isn't it? Using other business as usual, you're only going to stick to business as what? Intervention, and then you say, we are lucky, we are short of this much to make this one democracy. That's an example. Okay? So that's why we never want with the hosting only to do what the additional without focusing on the business as usual, because some intervention have been sensitive. So what those other elements that require great additional money, and then you present it as a whole, not as only additional money in the budget. Does it make sense? Because if you present it as only additional money required, isn't it? Chances are higher that you are going to mix up the things when it comes to the actual appropriation and attracting the investments outside government, isn't it? So it is better in the background, you have the three scenarios, isn't it? That's why it's like, don't lose out on this background information. But while presenting this in the Dccap is a combination of the normal plus additional resources required, and then factoring the inflation, and you present it as a plan. But you can trace what additional resources is coming in presented in the background information, but when you present it, good to present as something which.
This is important. I think I did get how we can use findings of the CRV and fit them into the incomes. Because CRVs usually have adaptation, identification, and their aspects. So if you could throw some legal light on that.
First of all, the CRVs do not have limitation.
Good.
And says we do 3 or 4 assessments. The first assessment is the CRVS, which is responding to adaptation. The second assessment is the mitigation assessment, which is talking about greenhouse gas sources and identifies the measures for that. The third one is about capacity needs, which you do, and the fourth one is the change. Isn't it? Now, those assessments, when they are done, you become academic. Let me use that word. That you summarize the findings, isn't it? And present them in the Dccap say. Because, for example, instead of trying to show how did the CRVA, which community did you went to, the speed of CRVA, etc. No, those are remain different people. Here, what we come and present, that this is how temperature is going to be, this is how temperature is going to be, and area ABCP and the what's affected. This is how rainfall is going to be, is how it's supposed to be, and the area 1, 2, 3, and the what's affected with the numbers. Now, out of all these things, out of this government, this is the overall vulnerability of the business. And the below is the overall exposure, sensitivity, and the capacity. Now, below it, you can present in the table sub-count the overall lower local government specific markets. And the most appropriate sectors is ABCD, and you make reference to detailed report. You are complicated. Now you come and present the measure. Because now these are the most important. So what is it I want to do? Respond to those. Because the other page, the other has like 100 pages. This can because it's detailed one. Here you can summarize it in 3 pages about the risk. Then the rest is measure. Because you make reference to the detailed report. The same applies to the other reports. So you get that high level summaries is what you use to put in what in the Dccap itself. Because we don't want to make a Dccap, the technical reports, this is a plan. Is that clear? Yeah. All right. So what we have done.
Yes, thank you so much, Commissioner. And yes, you can clap for them. I know now we know the steps for developing the Dccap. And for people who think that you actually had one, now you know whether it is the actual Dccap or you need to add in another component. So with that, I invite us for lunch. It will be served the restaurant as you go out. You'll see the next step. That is where we are going to have lunch. We are coming back at 2. Give ourselves
You want to have the one section just to elaborate. I'll talk about it, but just elaborate. How do you do the assessment? How do you identify measures? That's what we'll be talking about.
So we are going
after lunch. Then we will not I don't think we'll be